god, Bretton's just dead. What?
Dark Knight will get that shot in. He has one more shot. He takes out the other tank, and now it is impossible for the E100 to win.
And the Matildas do one better, and it does look like they will be the champions of Season 3. Matildas will take it.
There's the pummel party about to come out.
Yep, and Knight's the first point of focus, and Knight, oh my god, he's just been deleted.
I don't think he can hit the I7 without the I7 hitting him yet.
Oh, he can, he's
saying?
actually insane.
Unreasonable shot from Napalmer, but can he get the reload off? Can he survive? Does he know where Dell is? And does YMO miss? No is the answer.
Hello and welcome to week 3 of season 5 of the World of Tanks ANZ Premier League. I'll be your host Pilski, and I'm here and I'm ready for some tanks, even if my voice is not. I'm joined by one excellent caster and Elfish Guy. How you doing, Elfish Guy?
Thank you very much for such a stellar introduction, Pilski. It's really great to have you on this show. I'm sure you will be back next week if I have some feedback to give to the Wargaming staff. So it's really good to have you.
I love you, Elfish Guy. You're my favorite caster. Cthulhu, how you doing?
Yeah, look, doing pretty good. Look, quite excited to go into week 3 because after the last week's 1 or 2 upsets, it definitely shaken up the leaderboard rather thoroughly.
Yeah, I heard a thing or two about that. We definitely have a lot of upsets in ANZ across a lot of different titles, so I'm keen for some tanks upsets. But look, we've had a couple of different shake-ups as well. I heard that there was some patch changes and there's a couple of new tanks hanging around here somewhere, Jordan.
Yes, indeed. Well, just the one big one that we want to talk about, of course, is the Minotaur. But then the other change that I think is also quite relevant to touch on is the Muravanka edition as well, or the changes to Muravanka. I suppose we should probably say is more so relevant. But yeah, I mean, two little change-ups. I think based on what I've been hearing around, the discussions, and again, like I haven't obviously been able to try the tank. I haven't got it. But it seems like it's going to be a tank that is going to get picked up quite fairly heavily. So I'll be interested to see. Like, I don't really have a comment to make on it necessarily just yet, but I think I'll just wait and see what we're going to get from it. But yeah, based on what I've been hearing, we should be seeing a little bit of it tonight.
How about you, Cthulhu? How do you think this will shake things up this week? Anything different? Maybe there's a team that you're looking at in particular that might want to use this new tank, or maybe try to change up the map pool a little bit?
I'm getting a feeling that we might see teams like maybe like the Sentinels to try to utilize the new tanks, given that we've seen in the previous weeks some of the newly buffed French tanks actually start making an appearance rather thoroughly. I do have a feeling we might see a Minotauro maybe once or twice, given that it's one of those tanks that if you chuck it into a bit of a hull down position, it's basically impossible to really pen it frontally. So sort of as a bit of a frontliner for some more so an experimental play, we could possibly see it, but I reckon for the most of it, teams will really play for a little bit more kind of comfort zone sort of play.
Well, we were talking a little bit about it already in the intro, but, a couple of upsets last week, a couple of great little games. So maybe we can take a look at some of those results from the last round of competition. So, Jordan, what are you thinking about this first matchup in particular, the 3-1 Action X over Sentinels? I heard that Sentinels have kind of fallen off since Shroud left their roster recently, so...
Yeah, look, I was very surprised to see this result. I was so surprised when I was looking through it that I went back and watched it today just to sort of see what exactly happened. Because I looked at that on paper and I even was like, all right, well, maybe there was a world where Sentinels just didn't play with their full roster or something. They came in, as we've seen in like previous seasons, I should say, with like, maybe not the core 5 on any given night, and then they've looked susceptible. But actually, they did have all 5 of the members that you'd probably want to be seeing in the lineup, and they still lost. So I was a bit surprised by that. I had to go back and look. I thought maybe it was a close game. Maybe there was like some shenanigans around it, similar to week 1, where Comets was able to get that win over Matildas. Where there was like, maybe you missed a reset or something on one of the crucial rounds or something like that. But no, I mean, it just looked like it was actually quite a decent game played by Action X. So I was kind of, I still am kind of surprised by that. I would have thought Sentinels should breeze through this. But again, knowing Sentinels, and it's sort of what I said about them with my prediction in week 1 when I predicted against them. They are a team that is kind of prone sometimes to dropping games in the regular season. It's not as if they are unbeatable. It just sort of seems like when they get to the important matches and when they get into playoffs and finals, that's when they become the indomitable force. But during regular season, yeah, definitely teams can get the better of them. The only question I kind of have is like, is that a reflection on Adelaide Action X, or is that a reflection on North Sydney Sentinels? And I kind of have to feel like I'll wait until what I'm going to get from this week from Action X to kind of get a bit of an idea as to maybe whether it was more so them playing well and are they going to be able to replicate that, or if we're going to get North Sydney Sentinels maybe just having a bad week last week.
Yeah, and I'll get you, Cthulhu, just to quickly touch on the other two matches. A bit of a whitewash there between the Comets and the Scorpions, and then maybe a bit of an underperformance from the Matildas, perhaps? What do you think?
Yeah, look, for Comets versus Scorpions, it was a rather unfortunate sort of turnout, given that for Comets, they had to play in a 4v5 due to some unfortunate circumstances. So things certainly didn't look particularly too pretty there for them. But at least it did serve as a really nice sort of, I guess, a comical sort of relief for in the middle of our broadcast last week. But for the Matildas versus Panthers, yeah, look, relatively kind of expected that Panthers would be the ones to win out, given that they have had for the most of it a decent run even the last season. But for Matildas, yeah, it's been kind of like a running storyline where on paper they're great, each one of the players is good. Matter of fact, I believe 3 of their players are on the top leaderboards for the fantasy league, even in the solo performance department. But to actually translate it into the wins, this is where it seems like it has been a very big struggle for them, whether it's internal issues, whether it's tilt. We can't really yet call it for sure, but yeah, something's definitely been up. But maybe today will be a bit of a different turnout.
Well, we only had a couple of weeks of competition, but we'll take a little bit of a look at the standings and anything kind of coming out to you there, Jordan, just looking at how all these teams are lining up. Still plenty more games to play.
Yeah, I think there's a lot actually to kind of unpack here. Again, like we are only 2 weeks in, so maybe we can't draw too many conclusions, but I am kind of surprised to see Matildas down there in 6th place and like quite solidly in 6th place as well. It's not as if they're like equal 6th or something like that. They are just dead last at the moment. I thought that was a team that would be not too shabby coming into this season, but I guess we'll see how they do pan out. And of course, Sentinels in the middle of the pack, I guess it is a little bit of a surprise. I think going into last week, if you would have asked me, I would have said I would think they would be the team alongside Scorpions to be taking equal first with a total 6 points. But aside from that, yeah, I think most of it's sort of playing out as expected, but it is still early days, so a lot of moving and shaking can yet be done.
Well, let's take a look at some of the better performers in our fantasy team of the week. You were talking about some of those good performers there, Cthulhu, so I'll throw it to you. These are some of the players that I probably didn't pick because, haha, this guy's called PP Power. What do you think about these players?
Honestly, each one of them is a very able one. The big one that I've definitely been looking forward to is Bales, who has had a return this season into ANZ and so far had a really, really solid impact for the Panthers and kind of served as that really nice revitalization point for them. On the side of Action X, Val sort of having a really solid week, managed to really perform quite nicely. JT, Aussie, the two kind of big representatives of the Scorpions. Surprised that it wasn't Russian, but maybe it's time to give Russian a bit of a break and for the rest of the team to start taking some of the laurels. But yeah, apart from that, it's definitely, it was a good week for Panthers players, scoring a dub and scoring the high positions on the team of the week for the fantasy.
And let's take a little bit of a broader look at everything and look at the whole leaderboard and see how that all kind of breaks down in terms of the player performance, Jordan. And you can kind of contextualize that last week's performance and just see who's doing really well for themselves here.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of funny because we did talk about Matildas being towards the bottom end of the standing, but yet you've got Critical and Whippet, who are literally the top 2 individual performers. So there's something going on in that team that isn't quite coming together. And obviously you have to look at this and say, well, Critical and Whippet are definitely holding up their end of the bargain, although, you know, maybe they're just baiting and maybe they're not like sacrificing their HP or their tank as much as they should be. Who knows? But yeah, so sort of surprising how things are sort of playing out in that respect. Not a huge surprise, I guess, to see Madhouse and Rainbow up the top there. I think Rainbow is an interesting one because he's been a player that has like a lot of consistency in some seasons, and then in some seasons we just saw like last season he wasn't really on that top of the list. He didn't play a whole lot in the regular season, but he's always going to be one of those guys that when he's up in the top 5, you're kind of like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And another one that's actually quite a positive addition to this top 5, I think, is Val. Obviously, a very, very individually skilled player in his own right. I've spoken at length multiple times about how he was, at a time, one of the top DBG players on the server. In fact, the top DBG player on the Asia server. And then he obviously took a break from the game, came back now to ANZPL. This is his 2nd season. I thought last season maybe was a little bit disappointing for him and the team. But the fact that he's now sort of starting to climb up the ranks, and obviously the Action X are as well, I think that's really cool. I think that's a great storyline. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Action X can provide us.
Well, you won't have to wait too long. Let's have a look at a couple of the matches for this week that we'll get to cover, and we can get a bit of an idea of what we're in for. How about you just have a little bit of a chat here, Cthulhu, about the second and the third match, because we'll touch a little bit on the first one in a minute.
Yeah, look, the Comets versus Panthers, I'm actually quite curious about, because obviously on a time for Comets, this is their chance to. This is basically their second week where they get to play full 5 core, and against Panthers, this should be a really solid matchup, given that they're already shown some good prowess against Matildas in week 1. Against Panthers, this should really give them a really solid test, which I'm very much looking forward to. The Scorpions versus Sentinels, the Sydney Derby, the replay of the last season's finals as well, is looking very solid, because both of the teams have been one of the more consistent ones in ANZPL in the past few seasons, and it's certainly bound to be an absolute heater.
Yeah, it's always good to sort of catch up in the regular season with some of the strongest teams and just get an idea for how they're doing for themselves. Is the predictions leaderboard here? Love that photo of Mac. I'm very, very surprised that both me and Elfish Guy are even. I mean, we're all even on points. How has that happened, boys? Can you explain yourselves?
I've said time and time again, Pilski, that I don't care about the prediction leaderboard. I only care about fantasy. So
Right.
Whatever happens on this screen doesn't matter to me. But that is a sexy picture of myself.
And I mean, you clearly don't care about your facial hair either. We're all losing to Twitch chat as well, that's just unacceptable.
No, we're all
Except
losing
for
to
Blue
Blue Panda. Yeah, Blue Panda has been chatting it up in the prediction somehow.
100%. Well, here's our first match up of the week. We do have Melbourne Matildas versus the Action X boys. And here's the lineup for Matildas. Get a little bit of a look at how some of these boys are performing. You've been happy with these guys, Jordan?
Well, actually, no. I've been very disappointed with these guys. I don't think this is a team that should be sitting in 6th place right now. Obviously, the core roster comes through from last season of the Conquerors. They renamed to the Matildas. They pick up a couple of interesting players. I think Dark and Saxon were the 2 additions to this roster. Either way, I think both of those are pretty good additions. And you've got, really, really solid players like Whippet and Critical and Merry as well. Those 3 feel like the big core of the team for me, coming through from previous solid performances as well. And I just think it's kind of egregious in a way that this is a team that's sitting at the bottom of the scoreboard. I think these players are much better than a 6th place. And I don't think that the additions were poor additions at all. So I'm wondering, is it maybe a case of Melbourne Matildas not necessarily like going backwards, but the rest of the field kind of pushing forwards with a lot of really big pickups, a lot of new additions coming or returning additions coming back into the league to sort of elevate the strength of some of the other teams? Because, I would have expected this team to be easily a middle of the pack team, maybe even pushing for a top 4 spot, but that's clearly not the case at the moment.
And here we got the Action X. So, Cthulhu, how are you feeling about these guys' prospects in this series?
Honestly, Action X, in my opinion, went through a huge upgrade for themselves going into this season, picking up Gloucester, picking up Trax, as well as that Speed joining the team is certainly great. I mean, all of them played in the previous sort of mini competitions within the game prior to the start of this season of ANZPL. We've seen some really solid coordination from them. It has been a little bit of a shaky start for them at week 1, but honestly, I'm still believing that this might be the season for Action X to start actually, their big glow up sort of run.
Well, let's take a little bit of a look at what we will be fighting on in terms of the map pool between these 2 teams, Jordan, and you can get a little bit of a think about how this one's going to break down. No new map being mixed in. They're just sticking to what they know. But how are you feeling about this map pool here?
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit of Muro. Maybe we'll get it a little later on tonight. Fingers crossed. Maybe someone like Scorpions or Sentinels will pull it out. Either way, Siegfried, Line, Ghost Town, and Cliff. I like Cliff as a tiebreaker map. I feel like you can win that on the attack or on the defense. I don't feel that it's a map that's super one-sided. It probably does lean a little bit toward the defense, but by and large, I think it's winnable on both sides, so happy with that. Siegfried Line, again, I don't know that I have too much to comment on. It's still a very, very new map in the pool. We've only really seen it for a couple of weeks. What we did get from week 1 was multiple different styles from different teams. So it'll be cool to kind of see what Matildas and Action X are going to be able to bring to the table. I do remember Action X played that one against Scorpions, and they lost it, I believe 0-2. So not a great start to that campaign for them, and maybe part of the reason why Matildas chose to go for it.
Alrighty, well, we're going to be getting into the action, so I'll let you two lads take it away for us and bring us our first map here.
Thank you very much. And Cthulhu, what do you reckon? Minotauro coming out hot off the press or not?
That would be quite a courageous sort of approach, and I would expect somebody like Matildas to actually bring out the Minotauro, but not from Action X. I think that week 2 and week 1 definitely been a really good. Oh, well, yep, okay, there we go. There's Whippet. Yeah, but yeah, I would expect Action X to learn from the past few weeks, because actually week 2. We've seen quite a few really interesting iterations of Secret Line, where quite a few teams tried to do Brawl inside the city and tried to completely negate the field. But the main learning point was that actually if one of the teams does bring a scout like a CS into the field, they have a huge ability to just keep on harassing from the flank the enemy team. So here it seems like both kind of leaning into kind of a very similar lineup. I'm curious how the Minotauro will really work out, because right now it's very disconnected right now. So I'm curious. Let's just call it that for now.
Well, what about the AMX M454? This is a tank that we pretty much did not see at all in ANZPL until last week. I know you guys had a little bit of it last week. What did you think? Did it sort of feel like it was a welcome addition, or didn't perform too well?
It was actually working out pretty well, all things considered, because, I mean, with now the buffed turret armor and with the way how high it is, maps like, say, for example, even Himmelsdorf no longer are as safe as they are. So there's a few really solid setups that the AMX M454 really well fits in. I think even some of the content creators have been calling it the sort of the tech tree object 279E. Kind of deal, albeit not as sturdy, not as strong as the reward tank, but it very much I think has a place to be. It's just I think teams are still in that sort of semi-experimental phase where we might see some of those tanks be in a bit of a sort of awkward sport to play.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when, I mean, I guess a new or a buff tank starts to get picked a little bit. I remember when the VZ55 in particular got released, everyone was sort of saying, oh, this is going to be like literally perma pick. You're going to see 2 of them every single game on every single side. And it sort of ended up like that for like maybe a week or 2. A lot of teams playing it a lot of the time. But now it sort of feels like we very rarely see it, only in certain specific situations. So I think there will be a big sort of talking point, a big discussion point around the Minotauro in particular, and maybe the AMX M454. But as we get a little bit deeper into the season, yeah, it is. And a little bit deeper in the season, I think maybe we won't be touching on it quite so much. Either way, Critical is not having a great time to start off this round in particular. In that 277, he's kind of like the point man for the Matildas. He's holding on to the, I suppose, the most southern part of their control, and he's already starting to cop a beating. Needs a little bit of assistance through from the likes of Dark and maybe Joe Toro, who have pushed up in those IS4s and now starting to have a little bit of a look into Val, and that is a very nice couple of shots coming through. Those IS4s hitting hard onto the E100. A little bit of an overextension maybe from Val, and he is punished for it. And that sort of stabilizes things a little bit for Matildas, who were really suffering with some damage onto Critical.
Now with Whippet joining the battle, finally, I was very patiently waiting for that to really happen. Minotauro actually could do quite a lot of very stinky damage there, so very much Val will need to be quite cautious about where he gets pushed. Donga and Speed need to be also very wary about bleeding damage right here, because their clip damage will be very much crucial for the play, but in comes the heat towards Val.
Yeah, Dark hopping a shot, did fire off one of his own, not able to get it through. So for all the good work that Matildas did onto Val initially, now they're really struggling to punch through that E100, it seems like. But in the Minotauro is leading that charge as well, but inevitably you're going to see Dark fall down pretty early on in the piece. It should be a 1-for-1 exchange, but if you turn your attention up to the top side of your screens, you'll see Critical going down very quickly to Speed. A 2-for-1 trade overall. Action X are slightly ahead in terms of this little skirmish. But
Look where
Matildas
Whip-
are at least being able to trade like for like every single time a tank goes down. They're trading one back. But they have that HP deficit. They have a tank on one shot, and it's starting to look a little bit more difficult for them from here on out.
Problem being is that if you noticed, when Whippet decided to push head-on directly in the face of Val, and then later down the line Iron Guard as well, he didn't lose a single bit of HP. The only time he did just take a bit of damage was when the Amex M454 off tracks actually shot him in the back. So it's already showing that unless you're hitting the very top of the turret or the hull, yeah, good luck pinning the Minotauro. And that's been kind of the big talking point. Speed might get a very nasty surprise right about now. And hopefully he'll get to utilize the mobility of the 50B, but not without the losses.
Yeah, not a bad start here for Whippet. I think actually it's going to be quite difficult for Action X to win this one if Whippet plays it correctly. I do wonder, though, if he's gone a little bit too eager. The fire is a very nice turn of events, though, for him, and it will help him get the better of at least a one. It's a 1-for-1 exchange. I almost might have preferred to see him just play that a little bit more passively because he is on the defense, and when you've got 3 tanks available to you, I think it's going to be a bit of a more difficult nut to crack than when it's just the 2. Dongalord now in the 50B, it sort of feels like he's got a lot more freedom to be able to chase down Joe Tora. Obviously, Merry Turnip is down to a one-shot, and obviously Trax as well is involved in this, so sort of felt like maybe there could have been a stalemate for a little while if Matildas played that one a little bit more passively. Whippet, though, tries to pick the pace up, does go for a 1-for-1, which, you know, in isolation, you look at it and say, that's fine, but now I'm starting to get a bit concerned because I think Action X have got more than enough time to chase down these remaining 2 tanks, and, well, Joe Tora, he is toast. Merry Turnip, he's got to survive for a minute and a half, which is really not an easy task.
Yeah, it will be a bit of a difficult one. Ideally here, you would probably want to just send it to the 1 flag and just go for a cap. But it seems like Action X gamers want to get the frag going. But, I mean, look, at least if not anything, kudos to Matildas for trying to experiment with the Minotauro. Theoretically, the initial push worked out. It's just how they handled themselves after it is where kind of the problem started to keep on compounding, and where they couldn't really, keep up the good damage because of that crossfire, because of Trax was able to keep up pumping out the damage behind the heal. And that is the beautiful thing about the Secret line, because it did get a little bit of a terrain buff as well amidst the newest patch as well. So he was able to conceal the play. Unless Mary is able to hit the shot,
it would be a blind shot, would it not? I don't think he can spot Dongalord in that 50B. He's inside of the down tree, so a bit of extra camo there, but I mean, you might just blind fire it, and if he hits, oh, he does hit. Hang on a second.
Way.
No. Oh. If he would have just played that a little bit more passively, I wonder, really bring the timer down, fire that shot at the last second, reverse back behind the rubble. Was there a world? Well, we'll never know, but end of the day, not a bad start for Action X.
Yeah, how are you feeling about the Minotauro coming in there, Cthulhu? You mentioned it at the end of the cast, and I saw Whippet was getting pretty aggressive towards the end of those exchanges. How do you think it went for him?
I reckon if they would have played it a little bit more sort of withdrawn, so they've gotten the pick onto Val and then started falling back using the Minotauro's frontal armor as the sort of the cover for one of the tank's hulls, maybe that would have been a better idea. But it's more so just at this point just theory, really. But I'm liking the fact that sort of you can use it as a frontliner. It's just more so because of the lack of the mobility, it would require to have some sort of an escort.
I felt like Action X was kind of trading more favorably for the majority of that game, Jordan. Like, it always felt like they were up in HP or they were like a tank ahead. So what do you think was the key to that success?
Yeah, I think initially, we obviously have to talk about the damage that was done to Critical really early on. When you're seeing that kind of bleed go through onto a single tank, it's often going to be a big problem. And it's especially combated when it is onto just a singular tank, rather than, like, in this case, let's say maybe it was 3 shots that went into that 277. If that's 1 shot on the 277, 1 shot on the IS-4, 1 shot on another IS-4, that's not really as big a deal as having Critical down to half HP, because his effectiveness as a tank is really significantly hampered by that. So overall, you can see Merry Turnip as well. Did he really get 0 damage? I'm not so sure about that. because I think he was the last player alive, and he definitely did get that one shot in onto the cap. But either way, you know, like really good damage numbers coming out of the 50B here of Dongalord. Speed also chiming in with really respectable numbers as well. So I guess when you're sort of looking at it from the perspective of Matildas, they sort of almost always felt like they were fighting from behind, and they were able to keep up the pace for probably a good 5 minutes worth of that game. But inevitably, when you're constantly fighting from behind, you're never being able to find an advantage at all. That is going to get the better of you, and something has to crack. And eventually it did for Matildas. And so, like, the scoreboard, it doesn't look that bad. It did look reasonably close that game in terms of the HP and the damage dealt and whatnot. But it always sort of felt like it was Action X's to lose. And so, very nice conversion from them. Very solid game out from them. Not a bad start to the series at all. So I like what I've sort of seen from Action X. I think there's a fair bit to work on there for the Matildas, though.
Yeah, it's a good time for Pilski's fantasy, I'll say that, because Dongalord has come in clutch there and had a pretty nice first map for himself. That was, I'm pretty sure that was Matilda's map pick, though. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Cthulhu. So how you feeling about their chances now, trying to come back on their opponents?
Look, for Matilda's, things are certainly looking a little bit rough, not gonna lie. If as long as they don't let themselves get turbo tilted off the back of this round loss, they should be fine. I still reckon Siegfried Line could be a 1-1 sort of venture for both of the teams. For Action X, though, kicking it off like this to be able to quite cohesively keep on trading the shots and the tanks, that is a very commendable thing. So I'm very much excited and looking forward to see what Action X could really bring in. But on the same page, sort of with Jordan, Matildas need to do something here.
Alrighty, well, I'll let you guys get into the next map of commentary, and I'm fingers crossed that Dongalord has another big performance like that for my fantasy.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you, but not for me. He's not on my team. But we'll see. We'll see how they go. I would personally like to see Critical get to actually play the game a little bit. I mean, he, to be fair, did about 1,800 damage, which I think, given the circumstances, wasn't a bad shout from him. But I'd like to see what he's able to do if he's got a full tank's worth of HP to play with. Double Minotauro this time out from Matildas. This time it'll be Dark to join Whippet. So they certainly have been big fans of that tank. And look, I don't think it's a huge surprise. They've always been a team that's quite big fans of Boiler Loaders. So, I'm not surprised to see them going straight into it. And this is bold. Driving their way straight onto the 2 flag. Dark going to be copying the early damage from Val. It's a very open flag, though. I can't really imagine they're going to be able to get any real significant cap pressure here.
I mean, the funny thing about the Minotauro as well, if you angle it just the right way, it is near impossible to really consistently pen it. So I'm assuming that's the play here. Confused about why is Mary or Whippet not joining the whole roster and sort of the play for the Crossfire.
Well, they're trying to catch speed or something.
That's great that it's a bait, but dedicating 2 of your tanks, 2 very not as mobile tanks to try to get 1 CS feels a little bit of a overextension for me.
I'm going to say I'm not a huge fan of this one from Matildas at all. I think they've just driven onto that cap and given up so much HP for free. They are going to try, though, to collapse on top of Trax. Speed actually cops a fair bit of damage there as well, but Trax is going to be able to back his way up, and if Matildas push forward, they will be walking into a big crossfire of all those tanks set up on top of the hill. Trax just needs to survive. Actually, in the end, Matildas do trade relatively effectively, which sort of surprises me. But I guess with that in mind, then mission successful so far for Matildas.
Very much so, yeah. With Speed now being sub 1k HP as well, things would get rather dire for him if he ends up being forced to do something something quick or something very decisive. Still yet to see Val, Ivan, or Dongalord to join the actual, the battle, as it seems like for now this is a very heavy play for the Ridgeline. It is quite amusing to see that Matilda's kind of decided that today is just, they just woke up and said, okay, we're going to be aggressive, no matter whether we're on the defense or attack.
Ooh, hang on, watch this from Action X. I think they've spotted Whippet in that Minotauro trying to get a flank on, and now they've decided to make their own move. Iron Guard and Val round the corner into Joe Toro, who has a damaged ammo rack. Track's got a shot in there as well. This should be an IS-4 out of the picture pretty early on in the piece. Really nice decisive collapse in there from Action X. And Matilda's just caught wanting with that said, they have kind of more or less driven themselves into a big crossfire, and when these Minotauros arrive, with their clips fully loaded, it could be a big problem for Action X. Speed is completely out of this fight right now, and you can see Action X are doing their damnedest to try to just keep themselves wolf-packing along, keeping as many guns out of the fight for Matildas as long as they can. And it's kind of working out, right? They've traded 2 for 1. Yeah, Val and Speed are down to a 1-shot, but Dongalord in that 50B will start to clip out into Whippet. That'll be finished off by Iron Guard. And all of a sudden, it starts to look more and more winnable for Action X. They have the tank advantage. For how long, I wonder, because Iron Guard will be isolated. But if Dongalord can escape, get another clip off, and if Speed can continue to put in some chip damage while Iron Guard is being finished off, this is a very winnable round for Action X, and a 2-0 is definitely on the cards.
Very much so. Now that with Mary is gone, it's all down to Critical. He's just about to come off the reload as well. But with Dongalord now back off the clip as well, yeah, this is looking to be a very, very dire situation now as well, being permatracked. Yeah, problems galore indeed. And look, it still could be relatively clutchable if Crit can get the better of Speed, but even then,
very, very, very tough.
bit of a
I mean,
dicey one.
he would literally have to kill Speed right now without losing any more HP, and then somehow Dongalord in that 50B would really just have to throw the game away. I don't think it's possible to lose it from here for Action X.
Yeah. And for a brief moment, I was like, wait, Dongalord is deciding to absolutely head on first, just approach Crit, is just, well, burst him down. And exactly what he will be doing, so a cheeky 2-0. And yeah, Action X are happy.
He was trying to help Pilsky out. He knew he was going to come off the reload before he would die anyway. Critical wouldn't be able to kill that 50B, so he thought, you know what, I'll get an extra kill and a bit of extra damage for the fantasy points. And I dare say that was actually a better game for the fantasy points for Dongalord than the first one, Pilsky. So you must be pretty pleased with that.
I'm so happy. Dongalord turning out to not only have a fantastic name, but also be a great pick. And look, I don't know what was going on. Matildas just woke up and chose violence, I guess. They don't give a duck. They were just absolutely rolling in at their opponents. But Action X came in and pinched them right there in like the middle of the game there, Cthulhu.
Yeah, that was a really solid approach by Action X to try to just basically just find that sort of nice, solid pressure point. It did get dicey when the 2 Minotauros did rendezvous together to get that sort of crossfire going, but at the end of it all, it still ended up working out, which to a certain degree feels a little bit surprising, but I suppose with Matildas as well getting that overly aggressive and trying to take full control of the city, I suppose they didn't really foresee that sort of full push against them.
156 fantasy points. Hey, you didn't do too badly either there, Jordan. Critical's up the top, even though they didn't get the dub. He did do pretty decently for himself. I have to say, like, even though like in overall points, like Speed isn't up there, he was quietly kind of staying alive and chipping from the top of the hill the whole time that action was unfolding. Like he was getting good value out, even though he's low HP.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, definitely, because we always talk about guns in the game, and guns in the game are definitely relevant, but not when those guns are not firing. So, you know, if you're a tank that's alive on 1 HP, essentially, you can still be quite useful to the team, and that's kind of what Speed was able to do. I will say, yeah, I'm quite happy with what Critical was able to do in that one. For me personally, he is just a 2-star pick, so you know, that's not a bad shout for a 2-star. You'll take that. Dongalord, obviously a 5-star pick, so you expect this kind of a performance from Dongalord. But yeah, 5.8, like that's really, really insane numbers coming through from him. You're not going to see that every day. I feel like, though, with those 2 games only, Dongalord has pretty much, you know, picked up his week's worth of fantasy points, and whatever you get from here now is kind of like a bonus coming through from him. The other thing to say, of course, is it's 2-0 now for Adelaide Action X, and quite frankly, I don't think Matilda's looked super well drilled on their attacking side of Miro. I mean, I saw the strategy, like I understood what they were trying to go for, but I just don't know that was a good strategy. Like, I haven't really seen any other teams doing that. Again, granted, I haven't watched a lot of Siegfried Line, but pushing onto the 2 flag, that feels like a push that's really ambitious to me. I don't know if you have a different opinion on this, but look at how open that cap is. So if Action X are just going to be able to look around the sides, get some resets here and there quite easily, it sort of feels like you, as Matildas, are always going to be put into a rough spot. And even though they traded effectively, once Whippet goes out on that flank, isolates himself away from the team, Action X just decides, yep, let's send it. We've got the overmatch here. So a few little things there again for Matildas that just sort of lets them down, unfortunately. And Now they're down 0-2, and it looks like they might be staying at the bottom of the table again this week.
Yeah, what do you think they need to do differently, Cthulhu? Like, you know, we were talking about maybe a bit of underperformance for them across the weeks, and look, today they were pretty aggressive. Do you think that's normal for them, or what are you putting this down to?
Not as sort of normal, given that Siegfried Lion, Elfish kind of outlined it pretty well overall. But I think it's just knowing when to kind of slow down and try to reassess for kind of step 2 is probably where things are starting to look a little bit dicey for Matildas. It's either full send or nothing.
All right, well, we'll see if they make any adjustments on here. I'll let you guys take it away, and we'll see who's going to be picking up this map.
Yeah, interesting one, isn't it? Because Ghost Town actually was historically not a terrible map for the Conquerors. I used to sort of not mind watching them play this map. I thought they brought some pretty interesting ideas to it. A lot of the time we would sort of see the 50B coming out, or the Foch, I think, as well, was something that they like to grab on this map. No Foch this time around, but the 50B does persist. I will say, yeah, like I have some degree of faith that Matildas might be able to get something done on this map, but it's a real uphill battle now.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely an uphill battle here. I am more so kind of amused, I guess, is probably the best way to describe this, about just how well AMX M4's 54s really got into the general sort of swing of things. Because I mean, you look at the general alpha damage, the AMX has a much better one. The alpha there, it can be either the 400 damage or the 560, which does sort of obviously change the DPG. Sorry, not the DPG, the DPM. But it's sort of found its own kind of niche here. But speaking of finding the niche, and you were talking about how things were looking pretty good back before for Conquerors on the Ghost Town. Seems like now it's, ape together strong.
Yeah, indeed, and Gloucester already copping a fair chunk of damage. Matildas look like they've set up very, very nicely. Dongalord in that bat chat, he's still on a very big rotation, so Matildas have got a bit of a window here that if they're able to take down 1 or 2 of these tanks, or at least get them incredibly low before the bat chat comes into play, then we may well see Matildas keep this series alive. Critical is down to a 1 shot, bit of a low roll, unfortunately, there for Dongalord. He's going to have to sacrifice another shot in there with that bat chat. That could be a big difference maker in the long run. With Action X now having only the 3 tanks, they really need to be getting everything out of these tanks as much as they possibly can. See, Dongalord, he did go for the clip with 2 left in the reload. So yes, he'll come back into this fight a little bit faster, but now he's just going to leave Speed and Iron Guard essentially for dead. I don't know that there is going to be really much that he's going to be able to do, even if he does get that reload off. So Matildas, as you say, apes together strong. They just drive forward, hold the W key, and that seems to have worked out this time. Didn't work on Siegfried Line. Bit of a change up though on Ghost Town, and they've made it work.
Yeah, the way how Action X did try to approach this was a very sort of methodical, sort of try to kind of counter strat, whereas for Matildas, they decided, okay, well, obviously strats didn't particularly work. Yes, the setups back at the Siegfried Line and the experimental sort of approach didn't particularly help either. Let's just get back to the basics. Play for just the numbers overmatch, the sort of almost like a CP style back at the Iron Age campaign. And, well, I mean, it worked out quite nicely so far for them, although that still doesn't, get them out of the, the absolute problems central that is them still facing not getting any points, but this is looking good.
I mean, sometimes the best response is just to run it again. Felt like they just went straight up the guts and maybe a bit of a different map, or they just caught a better timing there, Jordan, and they have a lot more success.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to have a bit of a chat, I think, with them if we do get to that point, if Matildas are able to win and we get the interview. Because I'd love to sort of pick their brains as to what their methodology has actually been coming into this game. Action X, on the other hand, it sort of feels like they're playing a little bit more of a sort of standard game. Nothing too crazy out from them. To be fair, I mean, there was definitely a world where Action X could have won that if they would have traded a little bit more effectively on that initial push. There was potentially a place where that sort of could have played out for them. Dongalord obviously taking a little while to get involved in the fight in that batch up, but he does get there in time. I think Action X kind of just didn't quite have their tanks in the right positions. They weren't quite able to, play the hull down as effectively as they might have liked to have. So, end of the day, Matildas do keep the series alive, which is quite nice for us. Don't really ever like seeing a 3-0 because then it's kind of like, well, round 4 doesn't really matter too much. But hey, Bit of a downer for Dongalord there. Only 36
I mean-
fantasy points this time, Pilski.
Yeah, you were mentioning though, Cthulhu, like they caught him on that rotation timing, maybe a bit better of a time of a push, and I don't know, like, I haven't watched too much tanks yet, but all I'm saying is Dongalore didn't get involved in the action, and Matilda's had a much better day, right?
Well, yeah, that's true as well. But I mean, I've mentioned this before, closer to the conclusion of that round, is that the way how even just Action X just in general looked to initially set up is to try to expand a little bit more, try to play for that sort of almost a counter strat setup for the Ghost Town, where you go into that a bit more of a prolonged game. Whereas for Matildas, they didn't want a bar of it, and obviously the full blown push, full rush actually worked out so much better. So it did also catch Dongalord off guard as well, because he was already mid going for the rotation to try to get some spotting, loop around the whole map. So for him to get it straight away involved in the gunfight didn't particularly help either, really. So. Yeah, look, maybe going into round 2, Action X will revisit sort of their lineup and go for just a full-on all-heavy lineup. But even then, they need to basically now completely scrap the whole strat book, it seems.
Well, I'm keen to see what the adaptations are, Jordan, because I feel like Matilda's been pretty aggressive so far. You expect them to just stick to the same kind of formula, or now they may be expecting Action X to make a change up? What do you think?
Well, I mean, Matildas are going to be moving on to the defense, so that may, in a sense, kind of hinder what they're able to do in terms of like dictating how this game does play out. You sort of need to have tanks all over the map to be able to deal with potential pushes on one side or the other. So I'm not sure how like overly aggressive they're going to be able to go, but I don't expect that they're going to change things up too much, in the sense that I don't think they're going to want to play a slow game here. We've already seen in pretty much every round that we've watched tonight, they are trying to be on the offensive. They are trying to be proactive. They're trying to be on that front foot. Even their defense on Siegfried line, you sort of saw like Critical was in the front. He was trying to sort of get a little bit of damage down early on. So I don't know that that's going to change up too much from them. And I don't expect either that their tank choices are going to sort of change up too much either. Like, we've seen so many autoloaders from them tonight. That has been their go-to for, probably the better part of this year. So why would they change it right now when they're trying to equalize the scoreline? I think stick to the tried and true and hope that it works.
Alrighty, well, Matilda's, in terms of their overall standings, would be good to see them pick up a dub here, but they've still got a fair bit of work to do. I'll leave it to you guys.
Well, let's see how this one pans out, Cthulhu, because it is kind of do or die in a sense for Matildas, obviously, for this series, but I think if they do go down with another loss 3 weeks in a row, it's not a very good sign at all.
Yeah, no, I'm very much on the same page here, Jordan. It definitely will be quite a heartbreak, quite a frustration point for Matilda. So this is, theoretically, one could argue that this is kind of the breaking point here for them. I'm liking the idea that they are looking to dedicate quite a fair bit of power towards the one flag. But, I mean, that leaves 2 flags so wide open, which basically for Matildas means just freelo, really. Get in all 3 tanks, already start setting up for basically a retake. And from there on, you basically, for what it's worth, you get the early shots. You would get, as Matilda's players, the early damage.
I've just realized I've absolutely cooked it, and I said Matildas was moving on to the defense. That's just because I saw that last round, and I guess I just assumed they were on the attack. But yeah, I mean, to touch on Pilski's point again and re-answer it, yeah, I guess if they are on the attack, they can just send it. And that's kind of what they've done. They've just sent it onto the 2 flag. To be fair, as you say, there was a very big 1 flag defense from Action X, which I think is almost not so bad, because it is a little bit easier to rotate back into the 2 flag and get those resets than it can be sometimes to go in onto that 1 flag where you really just get punished. This, though, I'm really not sure. I have no idea what on earth is going on for Joe Toro. Why is he driving forward like this? I could not tell you. That's pretty much the game done and dusted. Action X, they're going to get the resets here and they're going to win. It's 5-on-4. I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah, a bit confusing. As yeah, I thought that for Matildas they would be able to get a good setup. I'm liking, though, at least for Matildas, that they are able to put speed into a bit of a crossfire, because I mean, you look at him, already bled quite a fair bit of HP. Just 1 more shot and he's basically cooked. So we're back to even Steven. Yeah, there we go. But already with quite a fair bit of bleed damage. Dark for some reason decides to just drive out just all out in the open in between 3 different tanks. Yeah,
I have no idea.
Is this the go next sort of sign from Matildas?
this just looks like a massive miscommunication from Matildas. I have no idea. I really have no idea. They've just, like, one by one driven into Action X, and okay, I can forgive one, Joe Toro. Maybe you think he's sort of isolating that kill onto speed. I can make that argument, but then Dark does it as well. And you find yourself in a 4-on-3 where Matildas are down 3k HP. That did not look good at all. So whatever the call was, either it wasn't followed or it was like miscommunicated in a way that someone thought they should be pushing and someone else thought that they shouldn't be pushing, and then everyone sort of did nothing, or everyone did something different. That's the problem, right? If you're all doing the same thing, yeah, maybe it can be a bad call, but it still works out. But even if it's the best call in the world and everyone's doing it one by one, Action X is just going to turn all their tanks and say, yeah, look, let's kill Joatora one by one. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Dark's going to give us another kill. Let's do that as well. So, not really sure what's going on there for Matildas, but unfortunately, I don't think they win this series anymore. I don't think they get this through the tiebreaker, and looks like Action X should get themselves a 3-1.
Yeah. Quite an upsetting turnout, though, for Matildas, because it's yet again sort of continuing the run, which at this point now kind of almost asks for a question as to, well, what's going to happen? Say end of the season comes, is the full disband, completely remake the whole of the Matildas roster at this point? Because well, something needs to happen. Some sort of change needs to come around, because if it continues like this, I mean, all Matildas will end up becoming just a punching bag of the whole of the ANZ.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's still a little bit early days to be saying that. It is only week 3. We haven't even gotten through the first round robin, but yeah, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, really, and figure out what is going on, because this was a team that, at this point last season, and, bearing in mind there has been some roster changes, but not massive ones, this was a team that was at the top of the scoreboard at this point last season. So now they're literally gone from the top of the scoreboard pretty much after week 3 to what will pretty much be the bottom of the scoreboard. In fact, if they lose this series, it will be the bottom of the scoreboard. So I think it's evident that the individuals on this roster and the players that they have are quite good and quite solid, and you can sort of get an idea of what they're able to do on their day, but it's just not coming together as a lineup, and there's something wrong in that respect. So they need to figure that out pretty quick, smart. Otherwise, they won't be making playoffs.
Keep in mind as well, you and Pilsky made actually a really good point that maybe it's not, just purely Matilda's fault. Maybe it is just the whole, playfield just keeps on moving and pushing ahead rather than sticking and staying with them. So it could be just the fact that, Action X has just built this and, just gotten a whole lot better compared to the last season. But I mean, yeah, there we go. 3-1 victory, and yeah, they look absolutely stoked.
Yeah, they're pretty happy with that, and I dare say that wasn't a particularly close series. Action X really, it felt like it was their game to lose for the majority of that series, outside of that kind of one outlier game in the middle there, right?
Yeah, sort of. I think there was like that one moment where Action X kind of got caught off guard a little bit by that aggression from Matildas, but for the most part, yeah, Matildas don't look like the well-drilled team that they were last season, and Action X, they have actually gone from, like, it sort of feels like the teams have kind of swapped roles, right? Action X was that team last season that you looked at and went, there's some moments there that are nice, but for the most part, they don't really look like they're going to be a contender for even a playoff spot. To now, this season, they look like actually quite a solid squad. They've taken down Sentinels last week. They've backed it up with a good, solid win today. And Matildas have gone from being a team that was really upsetting a lot of teams last season to now upsetting me.
Look, it's another good one for my fantasy. You got any of your boys in here, Cthulhu, that you're happy with their performance today?
Look, I'll say that I may have copped a bit of an L on the fantasy picks, because the only person that I've picked out of this very matchup was actually Crit. So at least he performed relatively well.
He did okay. He did all right.
Yeah. Although next time I've learned my lesson, more Action X players in the roster. But in terms of just the general turnout, I'm happy to see that, last time we were talking about, Action X, had a rough run, rough gigs. The whole last season was just the L Central. Now it's the Dub Central for them, it seems. Yeah, getting the better of Sentinels, now getting absolutely the better of the Matildas. Certainly does start off their whole storyline really, really well.
100%, I'd agree. What do you think's different for them this season, Jordan, compared to last season? Like, is there anything very noticeable?
Who are we talking about? Action X or Matildas?
Action X, yeah. Because, Cthulhu was saying last season maybe not as impressive as their current form right now.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I think for Action X, obviously some notable additions in Gloucester. I believe is Speed an addition this season as well? You
Yes.
said?
Yeah, Speed is an
So
addition as well.
I don't know if maybe that's the big difference maker. I don't know exactly who's calling on this Action X roster, but I know Speed is someone who has a lot of experience. So if he's kind of brought that into this roster, and maybe he is now calling for the team, that I think could potentially be a reason why they have looked to be on the improve. There was, in previous seasons, no secret that individuals, especially like Dongalord, were really solid players. Like, he was overperforming the results of the team as an individual. He was always very, very solid. It was just that the team as a unit sort of wasn't working very well around him, and I think that's probably something you could say maybe for Whippet right now on Matildas. Like, these individuals are having good performances and getting damage out and doing what they can, but whatever it is, the teamwork, the cohesion, the strats just don't come together for that team. And once you put a little bit of a different formula around them or a little bit of a different lineup around them, all of a sudden it looks like actually this could be a very, very solid team. And you also have to say, Val, again, very consistent performance from him. So sort of seems to be coming into his own as well. I know it does take time to come into this kind of a format, into a 5v5, even if you're someone that has had 7v7 experience, which I believe Val did have a little bit of, not a lot. There's still a lot of things to change up. We saw people even, like Safi and Madhouse, right, in their first seasons. Very, very experienced WGL players kind of struggling a little bit to get it going in the early weeks. So it sort of feels like, now it's kind of all starting to come together for Action X, right? They've got good experienced players coming into their roster as additions this season. They've got star player / individual firepower that was already good or is now starting to really come into their own. And it sort of seems like that team is coming together really, really nicely. So I think it's a lot of factors, to be honest, Bilski. But I'm really, really keen to see more of Action X, to be honest, which is probably the first time I've ever said that about this team in the history of ANZPL, because they've always been a team that has not even looked like a playoffs contender. So yeah, I'm super keen.
Well, let's try and dissect the Matildas a little bit more. Cthulhu, we saw them pick up the Minotauro on the first little bits of the series, and it didn't go super well. Do you think that kind of factored into it? Maybe, you're talking a little bit about tilt factor. Sometimes you try something new, it doesn't work out too well, and then you're kind of scrambling for there. Did they get off on the wrong foot? What do you think?
It could have been just a plethora of things. Yeah, definitely the experimental approach didn't particularly work out as much as one would have wanted. And certainly, a few of the approaches that they've tried to take, both on Secret Line and Stan, felt a little bit peculiar. Let's call it that for now. But I think it's just the fact that on one hand, the Matildas are just trying to just solve whatever the internal problems there's been, whereas for Action X, is just polishing the gameplay.
Well, Action X did very well for themselves, locked themselves down a relatively quick series. So let's have a chat to Speed, see how he's feeling. Hey, happy with that series, Speed?
Oh yeah, that series went, nearly perfectly, apart from one of the games where the Matildas, fair play to them, they caught us off guard. They read our lineup and capitalized. So, but yeah, 3-1. We can't be sad about that result at all.
No, I mean, especially after what you guys were able to do last week. Now, Pilski actually asked me quite an interesting question about you guys, and I kind of almost want to send it your way as well. And the question was, like, obviously, last season you guys struggled a little bit. I guess there's been changes and whatnot, but I want to know what's actually kind of been the difference maker for Action X this season. Obviously some additions, some new players. Does it just sort of feel like maybe the team is coming together? Individuals are kind of playing well. Where are you guys actually finding your success this season? Because it's sort of a very different look than what we've seen from Action X in the past.
Yeah, well, there's a few things in my opinion. So Action X, it's quite a very different team from when I was there in Season 2, if you guys remember. Nowadays, we have me, Trax, and, the new addition, Gloucester. So when you combine, me, Trax, Donga, CJ, all the boys, we have a lot more minds kind of thinking strat-wise. And we have a lot more, I feel like, compared to season 2 when I was there, we're communicating more, we're switched on more, we have more experience. We're seeing situations that we've seen, many times. So it just allows us to be more flexible and react faster to a lot of things, so we don't get caught out as much, really. So, yeah.
Right. Look, I mean, going into Secret Line, you guys got to witness the brand spanking new, the Italian TD, when Matildas were on the defense and decided to full-blown send at you. What was kind of the reaction about it? Because it certainly seemed like you guys still kept the composure pretty well, all things considered.
Are you talking about the Matilda's defense?
Yeah, the very first round, yeah.
Yeah. So, that game was quite interesting. I mean, I feel like we were always in control. Like, we always had tempo of that game. Like, I was going to get the pick on crit with the 50B. I mean, I should have, but I kind of trolled one of my shots. And from there, as soon as I was going for that 277 in my 50B, we knew that they were going to, straight away, they were going to 5-man push into our main force. So we had a strong crossfire set up, ready for that. You know, because we were speaking about that. We knew that situation was going to happen. Once we did pick crit, we knew we were in a good position because they were going to have to push into a 4-man crossfire where I was just going to be able to kill crit for free. So from there, the game is, quite easy in our hands. Like, we're not really stressing too much. I mean, on the comms, I kind of was stressing out a bit, but yeah.
Look, one more question as well. In terms of the tanks picks as well, with the most recent update as well, with the fact that AMX M454 now sort of started to come into the general swing of things, kind of what are your thoughts? Because I mean, looking at just the hard stats, it feels like just slightly more reinforced, slightly more mobile S-Conk. But any kind of thoughts of your own on this one?
All I'm going to say is, the AMX is quite the tank, indeed. Like, I feel like it's very strong, and it's going to be a staple in ANZPL, along with the Minotauro. To me, it's basically a chieftain, but obviously not quite as good with a bigger cupola. Like, that's the way that I think about it. Like, it's got the mobility, it's got the DPM, it's got some troll armor. It just has that cupola is a bit troll. Like, it's not quite a chieftain, but yeah.
Alrighty, well, it's still early on in the evening, so you got a bit more of time to celebrate. Maybe go grab yourself some dinner. Thanks for chatting with us, Speed.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. He's clearly very happy with that win, and I mean, he got a great win as well last week, Jordan. So that team really on the fast track to a great position in the league, right?
Yeah, I think so, especially with the way that they're playing. You know, I mean, it's always well and good to sort of be picking these wins up, and we can look at that on face value. But also, if you dig a little bit deeper and say, not only did they beat the defending champion in Sentinels, but they've been able to back it up 2 weeks in a row and look good while doing it, it makes you think that maybe the loss against the Scorpions was early game jitters, early season jitters, a little bit of an awkward week for them. They might well be a contender for a top spot this season, so I'm very happy with their progression and looking forward to seeing more.
Alrighty, well, that's the first series done and dusted. We're going to take a short break, and after the break, we'll come back and go for the Comets versus the Panthers. So stick around. We'll be back right after the break.
And the Sentinels picking tanks up left, right, and center at the moment. The IS-7 is not even needed at the south at the moment. All they need to do is just play this cautiously. You can see Return making a long way around. Should be able to get a couple of flanking shots in.
So right now for Val, he's in a bit of a picky position because yes, there goes Return, and Dongalore just sacrificed half of his HP that was before, but Val is on fire, and he's about to go down in a matter of one more shot, so...
But no, they've actually gone for Val. They're dumping into Val right now, so that is an extraordinary pick, which means that Adelaide Action X need to go for this one flag. They need to kill Del, they need to go for this one flag and still control mid. That's their win condition. Their key, obviously, is the CS63 rotating, but this is what I meant. Those Super Conquerors are now just caught in a brutal crossfire. I mean, the only hope here is that Return can slip past CJ, just as the Super Conqueror crests the ridge line. Like, CJ doesn't catch Return, but I think they've just spotted out each other. That's a huge pick, obviously, for Adelaide Action X, because as long as they know where the CS is, they can preempt this. CJ doesn't even worry about the IS-7s, obviously, but he needs to take a shot in, and this is where, obviously, that Speed and Donga can echelon each other. I feel like this is It should be a 1-1. Return obviously trying to find the shot right now, trying to get the reset shot, and it misses, unfortunately. The CS gun just not accurate enough ultimately.
If they're able to choke them out, this will be good, but with Return starting to get a flank, this is where the pincer play could really happen, because Dongalord is being just trapped, and yeah, with Return now from behind.
Be easy. Dongalord's going to come across the corner. He's going to have the clip off. Maybe Return biting off a bit more than he can chew, because he's been ammo racked out. Speed's going to go down, but so is Return. And Dell trying to persist, but unfortunately just won't be able to get there in time. That was a great play from the Sentinels, trying to find the targets, trying to isolate to the best of their ability, but 4 seconds left. Unless Cindy, no, not even Cindy's going to be able to find the shot. Dongalord is just out of there. The AMX-50B, they can't really chase up to him in time, and Rainbow's just gone down. He's the pick this time, and they can't get rid of the IS-4. Adelaide Action X, they're doing it. They set the trap, and it's working to an absolute T.
And yeah, for Sentinels, this is a big missed opportunity. Well, I'm almost just at this point just trying to just run from all of this, but Action X are the ones to pull the grand upset here.
And they're going to instantly get rid of the E3. Watch this. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, that is absolutely disgusting. So much damage to the E3. Just trying to tuck away. Dark Knight should be able to get the finisher over here. Should get the reload. There it is. And now Stipe is going to be the pick pretty much at this point. But out comes the reinforcements of the AMXs. They'll be able to get some shots in. I think the focus needs to be onto either the 50B or the IS-4s. I'm not sure. It is going to be the IS-4s. It's going to be the pick. And all of a sudden, just like that, it is going to be a 3-on-3. Napa is going to go down.
600 HP remaining, 200 about to be one more shot, and that's it. Yep, pretty much that's done and dusted. And now...
JT's got the angle. And he bounces!
My brother in Christ, please.
You have 420 pen. How do you bounce on the side of a Fosh B? Well, looks like Napa's probably the pick over here with the Fosh B's collapsing in. He has to turn one way or the other, and well, looks like Sulla just dies pretty much. I think the Fosh B might have clipped the side of the mouse, and now out comes the rest of the forces.
Yeah, this was pretty much expected, really. Let's face it. The sheer abundance of that damage, my god, yeah, 10 seconds on the cap though, which will possibly get reset by Arthur if he hits his shot, but even then that is going to be a nail biter.
I don't think it's going to get reset in time. I mean, he's going in, he might get one reset off. They've actually come off just to collapse on it, because they realize probably where the threat's going to be is the VZs, and the VZs just coming in a little bit too late. I think a little dumping out to see if they could try and find a flanking angle, but there was no flanking angle to be found.
Looking pretty sturdy. I say that, yeah, he's able to at least claim one life. Who's sturdier, the T175 or the newly buffed AMX M454? And it seems, well, the answer is right on your screen. Come on.
Oh, 800.
There we go.
Not too bad, not too shabby. But Aussie does manage to finish off Dark Knight before he can slap another one into the box turret. And now it's Badger time. Wow,
it ends up just being a battle of just who can outstaunch each other just on the weight.
Yeah, I think it is going to be. There we are.
Dastardly doesn't look to be for long in this run, as his back is turned towards the two tanks, as Whippet is about to actually bounce a shot off the back of the IS-4. No, finally does actually hit it. Dark, meanwhile, took quite a fair bit of a punishment courtesy of Bale's clip. Sort of Matilda's just playing for the numbers overmatch, trying to just overpower Madhouse with just the sheer amount of...
Welcome back to Season 5 of the World of Tanks Premier League. We're in Week 3 and into our second series of the night between the Comets and the Panthers. And Jordan, you were telling me how excited you are for this one in the break. So what are you thinking about this one? You think the Comets are going to come through, or...?
No, absolutely not. Everyone knows I'm not a Comets fan. Everyone knows I'm a Panthers fan. Okay. I will say, though, yes, I am actually quite excited for this, because... I talk a lot about Bales. I still haven't got to watch him play a game of World of Tanks this season, because first week he wasn't able to play because he hadn't moved yet, like an idiot for some reason. Didn't want to play week 1. I don't know. Week 2, I'm not available because I had to go work on something else. So week 3, hopefully he's going to play this week. Otherwise, I'm going to be very, very sad.
How about you, Cthulhu? What are you thinking about this matchup?
Honestly, I'm keen because On the side of Comets, look, yeah, they're the quote-unquote underdogs, the newest introductions to the league. But off the back of their performance back in week 1, I'm thoroughly excited to see how will sort of their approach, how will, with Power back during the interviews alluding to, oh yeah, counter strat is all. How would he approach the Panthers? Because Panthers can get quite methodical and quite thorough. So here, I reckon it is going to be sort of the new talent versus the grizzled veterans of the scene, I suppose. And I definitely feel like we could see, even the tiebreaker map make it through.
Well, for all those that aren't too familiar, let's take a little bit of a look at the lineups of these two teams and get an idea of who's going to be playing, see if Jordan's going to be happy. We'll start out with the new kids on the block. PP Power is in my fantasy team, so I'm in for another good round of games, I'm hoping. Jordan, what can you tell me about these lads, Jordan?
Very, very fresh, obviously, into ANZPL for the most part, but actually having not too shabby of a run. I mean, I guess let's not talk about last week, but their first week was surprisingly good, although I guess in the context of Matildas now being at the bottom of the table, maybe we still have to see a little bit more from them. I will say, regardless, I think they're performing above my expectations. I will say I also didn't have many expectations for them coming in. Normally, every season, there is that one team for me that I'm like, well, they're just going to come last. Last season, that was Conquerors, and they kind of did very, very well. This season, it was Comets, and so far, they're actually doing pretty reasonably for themselves as well. And the reason that I have them in that sort of, oh, they are just going to come last category is that, like, we haven't really seen them play at this level of competition before. And for Conquerors last season, it was that they were a completely new team, where no other team was a completely new team. So it's mostly coming down to that kind of thing, not because of the individuals on the team or anything like that. It's not that I hate this team or anything like that. You probably listen to me and it doesn't sound like I very much like the Comets, but got nothing against them. It's just that I think that it's the easy one to pick on because they're, for the most part, team that is sort of coming up from a lower division and they have a lot of learning to do. And so far, we're kind of getting to see that like they are able to contest, but I want to see them against one of the top teams in the league. And I actually think Panthers will be a really good test for them tonight because this is a solid squad to go up against. So I will be interested to see what Comets can do tonight. I think this could be a tough one for them.
Already got the stubbies out and, a few opened beverages of various kinds. So you can see the Comets getting themselves warmed up for this match, well and truly, Cthulhu. How are we feeling about their opponents, though? Here we have the Panthers from Perth.
Yeah, the Perth Panthers, look, the roster that certainly has quite a lot of potential with them. With the introduction of Bales into the roster, this is looking pretty solid. And Madhouse as well, who has seen quite a solid sort of improvement for his run, as I memed before, from an average sort of T100 LT enjoyer to now a stable, sturdy S-Conk gamer. For the Panthers, he's seen a pretty solid improvement in his personal performance, but in doing so as well, improved the chances for the Panthers.
Yeah, so there you go, Jordan. We do have, Bales has got his cam on. I assume he's going to be in the server. That's got to get you excited.
Does get me excited. That is a fresh-looking man. If I saw that on another website, I'd be really excited. I'll just say that much. Madhouse also, I'm a big fan of Madhouse. Actually, I'm a big fan of this entire team, to be honest. Like, I think this was... at least the core of this team was one that I sort of underrated a lot in previous seasons, and they've kind of slowly but surely had some really, really impressive performances, better than what I sort of expected of them. And now I sort of feel like they are in a position where they could potentially be one of those teams that's going to make. I would say they should be making playoffs. How far they can go in playoffs, I'm not sure, because I think it gets into pretty murky territory when you're saying, all right, well, you have to beat Scorpions or Sentinels. But definitely, I'd like to see them into the playoffs. I think they should be able to make it that far. And then how much further beyond that? I guess we shall have to wait and see.
I think I got Power and Gooba in my fantasy team, so I'm a little bit torn about which way I want this to go. Here we do have the map picks here, and we do get Muravanka coming through there, Cthulhu. So the new guys on the block want to throw something a little bit new in the works.
Yeah, look, this is an exciting sort of prospect here, really, because for Comets, this is an ideal situation to try to, tilt the favor a little bit more towards them, with the fact that, Muravanka will be quite a new sort of playground where you can really now expand to the whole map, whereas Prokhorovka back to the sort of the comfort zone for the Panthers. So Ideally here, Muravanka needs to be that 2-0 ground for the Comets if they want to have a good chance at scoring themselves a dub. Otherwise, if it does end up leaning into the 1-1, worst case scenario even 2-0 in favor of Panthers, I think we might just see a 2-mapper and call it a day.
All right, and we get Cliff as the tiebreaker yet again. I think that was the same as the last series. So how you feel about this map, Paul Jordan?
Yeah, pretty good. I like Muro. Well, actually, I don't really like Muro, but I like Muro for the fact that we're going to get to see a new map or a changed map. I like Prokhorovka because it's just a great map, in my opinion, when no Artie is involved. And generally, you don't see Artie in 5v5. So, yeah, pretty happy with what we're going to get from this map pool. As far as the two teams are concerned, I guess Muro is not a bad choice for Comets. That's one that they picked earlier on in the season. They had some success on. So, yeah, I think it's actually not a bad veto from them.
Awesome. So Cthulhu, you're starting to get your head around this matchup, starting to decide which way you think this one's gonna to swing. Like, does the map pool change your theory at all? You know, who's on the roster? What are you thinking?
Look, I definitely think that we are going to be seeing Panthers in their full force today. And for Comets, I think a lot of their chances might be hinging on how Muravanka will really go here, I reckon.
All right, and I would ask Jordan for his opinion, but he's going to talk your ear off anyway, so I might as well just let him do it.
Indeed. That's what we love to see. We'll jump onto Muravanka and see what's new. What's going to change up? Is it going to be maybe a little more attacking favored, given the defense has not got quite as OP of a hull down sort of position? I guess we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Not changing too much up by the looks of things, just from the initial positions of these tanks. Like Panthers pushing one flag, Comets setting up in that bottom right corner, bottom left corner.
Yeah, but I mean, this time we do have so much more cover to really play around, so much more terrain to work around. So it doesn't have to be necessarily always you set up a crossfire at the sort of like the G1 position and then go for just an overpush. This time you can have a little bit more of that leeway as to how do you want to approach this sort of one flag position. Obviously, yeah, Forest is still, I mean, at this point, nobody cares about the Forest unless you're a scout. But the one thing that I am a little bit curious is just the overall lineup, because we didn't really get to talk about it. The Minotaur, the STB1, the Batchat, and then two S-Kongs.
I mean, I like
I'm sure Matteo will hate me for mispronouncing the Italian tank destroyer.
I'm just going to go with Minotauro, and, like, who cares? People have been ribbing on me for saying Kranwagen for, like, the last 5 years, but that's fine. End of the day, I don't speak all those languages, so I'm saying the English word. There's a bit of cap pressure on here for the Panthers right now. You do have Bales just watching to see if there's going to be a flank coming through, and this is a bit scary, actually, for Bales. He's got Stife in that batch up, but also the STB1 to be a little concerned with. So he actually does have to get out of there pretty quick smart. Looks like he is well on his way. Stife, as of yet, unable to find any shots. I don't even know if Bales was spotted there or if he spotted Stife or anything there, because there's obviously nothing showing on the HUD, but he really got out of there in the nick of time. So either the spider sense was tingling or he's got the info. Atherin definitely has been spotted, and he is getting absolutely chunked. So this is looking fantastic for Panthers. You can see those changes on the flag, keeping them a little bit safer as well, a little bit more difficult to find those resets as easily. You have to do it through from the town. And they have got that reset, but they have been punished for it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Madhouse is in actually a really solid position where he could, well, he only can really go for just one position where he has to play against PP Power. And, well, yeah, unfortunately, the angling is not particularly working out too well, given that S-Konk's premium ammo penetration is rather solid. So in terms of that, yeah, against the Minnow, things are not looking particularly too great. But so far for Comets, despite the lack of HP, they've been able to keep the Panthers a little bit more on their toes in terms of just resetting the cap points and all of that.
I mean, you say that, but if I freeze frame it right here, I'm saying Panthers win this game every day of the week. And if you ask Panthers, I think they'd be happy to take the game from here and say, yep, if we had to start in this exact position, we'll do that and be pretty happy with it. You've still got a full HP Batchat on your side of the field. Bales could realistically deal with Stife and Atherin on his own, given that he's very, very healthy in his own Batchat. And the rest of the lads in the remaining tanks for the Panthers are also set up quite nicely to continue that cap pressure. So this is, I think, pretty much the ideal scenario for Panthers. Bales is going to cop a fair chunk of damage here. Just gets a little bit over-eager on his rotation through, but he also does get the info on where that STB1 is. So that's a couple of shots traded for Bales' HP, but it also is the result of one tank down for the Comets. And Panthers, again, will take that. 12 seconds left on the reset. They're going to get it, but it's going to be at the cost of AVP's tank. So, again, Panthers trading effectively and doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, basically forcing now Comets into a bit more of a, uncomfortable position where they have to basically do something, and, well, do something means, unfortunately for them, is sacrificing that tank. I was about to say, yeah, AVP, you know, playing as part of Comets as well would bring in quite a fair bit of, experience. But, I mean, against this sort of setup, what can you effectively do? Because, yeah, Dark Knight could really go, but again, you're facing a three-way crossfire, and there's not much really to be done, because with Stife about to be hunted down by Bales and already taking a shot.
Roll. 445. Not that it would have mattered. I think he was a two-shot anyway, but geez, 445 roll in your back chat. You won't be too disappointed by that one. Yeah, look, really, really solid game across the board from Panthers. I feel like every single one of them has played their role and their position quite adequately. Everyone's done what they needed to do. 3k damage from Dark Knight in the Minotauro is not too shabby, but it's not, unfortunately, going to be enough to win the game here for Comets. And that's the defensive side of Muro getting knocked over. Whether or not that is something that we will be expecting to see more of, I guess we don't know yet. We have to see more of this map, but it has always traditionally been a very defensive-sided map. So whether that's just down to the strength of the Panthers on this map on the attack, or the map changes, making it a little bit more balanced, we will have to wait and see. Good start, though, to the series for the Panthers. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just pick up on that point that you just mentioned. I mean, we've seen a couple of changes to this map, Cthulhu. Do you think that kind of influenced the result at all? I mean, we're talking about side bias as well. We got kind of what we were expecting, I suppose.
I think here it's definitely made things a little bit easier in terms of the fact that it did give the Panthers a little bit more sort of wiggle room in the way how they've played around the flag, the map. It didn't really help that Comets ended up losing quite a lot of HPs for their medium tanks, so they couldn't really establish a very thorough control over the town. But yeah, the changes of Muravanka certainly played rather well into the setup of Panthers, surprisingly, here.
And so far, I mean, we've got 3 out of 4 Minotauro adopters, so we've got a lot of Minotauro lovers here, Jordan. How are we feeling it's performing?
I mean, it seems to be fitting in quite nicely. I don't think it's like, it doesn't seem to be dominating the meta. Like, it doesn't seem to be must pick every game, but it also seems to have its place. So at the moment, that's kind of what I'm happy to see. Like, I don't ever really want to see a new tank come out and it just get 100% pick rate, but I also don't want to see it be irrelevant. So I'm really happy. I think it seems to have been fitting in quite nicely. When it gets into a position to do damage, as we've seen there from Dark Knight, it can definitely put some good damage down. But also, if you're overcommitting and sort of throwing your life away, same can sort of be said. It doesn't really work out well. So it sort of comes down to how good you are at the tank and how comfortable you are.
Anything kind of sticking out in terms of the stats for this game, Cthulhu?
Look, I mean, the big one is the fact that so far, I mean, you look at the general sort of damage numbers, relatively stable for the 3 players between Twit, JS, and Bales as well. So really, really solid run. I mean, Twit scoring himself a nice 3.7k, almost 3.8. Certainly looking pretty good. But, I mean, overall, on the side of Comets, look, it was a valiant effort. Unfortunately, just, yeah, in the HP department, things were looking not as great there for Comets, given that they've introduced 2 mediums in the play, which was a valid sort of idea, valid approach in terms of them just wanting to get a little bit more mobile. But in the large scale of things, yeah, look, DPS didn't really work out. Arthur and Zula ended up getting eliminated very early, and no crossfire for Stife meant that, well, basically his whole approach, his life during that round was forfeit.
Felt like a bit of a different style to the last series, Jordan. Like, we had a bit of unga bunga in the last series with all the boys going together, whereas this one was like, everyone was kind of split up a bit more over the map, you know, taking pot shots at each other, and
Yeah.
it felt like the engagements were a little bit more split up. Is that kind of a stylistic thing with the teams or a map kind of thing? What do you think?
It's yeah, I mean that's definitely one way of putting it. I think it's a bit of column A, bit of column B. To be honest, I think you're kind of hitting on the right points with both of those examples, right? The maps being a little bit more city centric in the last series do lead to, you know, sort of more brawly, more wolfpacky kinds of games, but also the play styles of those two teams, and in particular Matilda's, seems to be very much like we just want to send it as 5 and sort of hope for the best. When we get in, I think in particular into our next game between Scorpions and Sentinels, assuming we've got full strength rosters from both of those teams, you will see it be a little bit more like what we're getting out of this game than what we got out of the previous game. And I think this is kind of a little bit more of a classic way to play the game. It's a little bit of a better way to play the game. Like it's the thinking man's game, because you need to be working all facets of the map rather than just putting all your eggs in one basket. So I think this is what the better teams tend to do. And obviously when Panthers is involved, you're going to get that.
All right, well, comments down 0-1 on their map pick. Let's see if the side switching up will work in their favor.
Yeah.
Big question
Quite
mark, isn't it?
curious. Yeah, definitely quite a big question mark, because Comets could really take the pace and dictate it really, really thoroughly in their favor. Once again, the introduction of the M454, as outlined by Wymo in the Twitch chat as well. For the first time, it's the Matildas that are actually making things meta rather than the Sentinels, which was quite a funny remark. But once again, yep, looks like this a very similar position. Mendicant Bias looking to take that sort of similar position as to what we've seen from the IS-7 off Panthers in the last round. Whereas Panthers are looking to have a little bit more of a thorough grasp onto the town out of all the things.
Yeah, it's a very different little approach, isn't it? With JS in that AMX M454. God, I'm going to have to say something different. I don't think I'm going to be able to stand an entire season of saying AMX M454. We'll have to come up with something different. Like Bat Chat, you know? No one says Batillon, Chatillon, whatever it is, 25 ton.
Chatillon, yes.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Besides the point, yeah, they've got that extra tank into the city, which is not super standard, especially that it's a heavy tank. Normally, it might be like a medium or something like that. But overall, seems to be working out quite nicely. Bale's just spotting from the forest in that batch out. You can see in the pip, he once again is just getting that sixth sense tingling a little bit, and he's on his way out. Also on the reload.
Yeah. This time, though, he did get spotted and will be forced off his position. Interesting enough to me that on the side of Comets, we're already seeing quite a very thorough bleed on multiple occasions, whereas on the side of Panthers, only up until now, it's been only JS who took a shot. So with now Bales being unlit, Gooba kind of being the, I suppose, the front runner here, kind of the big punching bag, he would need to do quite a lot of work. He, in fact, does. I mean, 551 damage is already quite rather nice onto Dark Knight, but with 20 seconds remaining, Panthers will need to do something here to get that reset.
Yeah. That's going to be the big talking point. Obviously, it's been good so far from the Panthers, but once they have to push forward for that reset, which is what Goober is doing right now, they're going to have to sacrifice an HP for it. First shot does bounce off the IS-7. Difficult to get through. Twit with an HE shell is able to finally get that reset, and Goober does slide one through as well. It's a bat chat 1-on-1. Bales just goes down by the skin of his teeth, and PP Power wins it out. Not something you're going to see every day, but that's going to be a big problem for the Panthers. PP Power, even though he's got a damaged ammo rack, is going to be able to float around the back lines, put in a couple of extra shots, and that could actually be really what puts this over the line for the Comets, if he can have some impactful damage. Mendicant is able to take down Goober. It's a 2-for-1 trade, and Panthers on the defense now absolutely struggling.
Yeah, that definitely turned things around rather nicely. I mean, the IS-7... the armor profile of that tank certainly has quite a solid place to be in the general meta, which we haven't really seen quite a whole lot of a pick rate for the i7 back in the previous season, but the way how things so far escalated actually worked out for Mendicant pretty well. Now, the issue is that JS is now all isolated.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on which perspective you're talking about, but I'm talking about from the perspective of the Comets. I think this is not a bad scenario. They are on the attack, so there's that to kind of keep in mind. But if they can kind of isolate JS here, and they should be able to do that if they can get Stife into a position to fire some shots off at him. Obviously, that batch out of PP Power as well is pretty much going to have to play this game unlit. But he can stay quite far away and just use Atherin, who's quite healthy, as a spotting mechanism. And pretty much just be the damage dealer for the team, rather than the scout. It's winnable on both sides, though. That's what I kind of like about this one, the way this played it out. There is obviously the benefit of Panthers for them that they're on the defense. They have that time working in their favor. But this is exactly what PP Power needs to be doing. Really, really nice stuff from him. He's got the bush to fire through. He's not actually penning Twit all that much. That's 2 out of the 4 shots so far. If he can connect the third one through, actually opts to just go straight for the reload. And Atherin's also able to 1v1 JS. That's really good. That's perfect from the comments. And to be honest, you know, like, I've been critical of the comments. Not critical per se, but wary of being positive of the comments because they're a relatively fresh team into ANZPL. But the way that they're playing out this 3v3 now has me really impressed. So if they do go on to win this round, which they should from here, then that's kind of the first round that I've been really impressed by them. I didn't watch their game from last week, obviously, but from week 1, I thought they were a little bit lucky to get that series over the line. But this is a really, really solid game from them so far, at least in this 3v3. So, credit where it's due.
I mean, the way how they've played it all so far, it actually worked out really, really well. Even on the solo play basis, it actually held on pretty well. Namely, gotta give kudos to Mendicant as well. The way how he held off whilst capping, despite the pressure from Gooba, despite the pressure from Madhouse and Twit, 3v1 to be able to hold on to it this long and be able to eliminate the Minotauro as well. That actually, held on pretty well, all things considered. Now the town is all in control of Comets, HP being even, but as long as basically Twit can get eliminated or Madhouse gets eliminated, this could be a really, really solid ground for Comets to win.
Most definitely. Don't want to see them throwing this one away. Twit might have been brought a little bit undone by the damaged gun there, but he was firing on the move anyway, so can't be expecting that to end every day of the week, let alone hit. In this case, he did not. It is still a very losable round for the Comets if they throw this away. I mean, Madhouse is reasonably healthy. Twit is reasonably healthy. Both of them are going to take a couple of shots to break, and they're both in a super conk, which can play hull down. Atherin going to do a bit of damage there with the ram. PP Power will come through for the securing kill. But Madhouse now, I mean, he really only needs like 4 or 5 shots to get this one done. Will sacrifice a fair bit of his HP to get rid of Stife, but this could definitely go wrong. This could really go wrong. If Madhouse is able to clutch this one out, then, I mean, it's not going to be the world's greatest clutch. That one probably goes to Trax last season, but
I think
this would be a really solid clutch. It kind of comes down to if Atherin throws his HP away, and if PP Power gives up his position a little bit too early, he needs to kill PP Power here, Madhouse. That's the big, big factor. He does. Oh, dearie me. Atherin should still be able to clutch it out, though. He's over the top. As long as he pens, he missed the shot. Atherin, 57 HP, and Madhouse now has a corpse to play hull down behind. This is so scary for that AMX M454, but Madhouse, he's rushing his shots. Now it's a chance for Atherin, who has to peek his way forward. Doesn't pen, and now it's Madhouse's to lose. Someone hit a shot, please.
Someone come get this man's. Someone get the shot, and Madhouse actually does it at the end. Oh my god.
Oh boy, big clutch from Madhouse there, coming up huge. Basically 1v3, and look, not without the opportunities to close there for Comets, but that's going to be a big missed opportunity for them because they're unable to get themselves a side on their map pick.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Look, it's a disappointing one for Comets to lose there, I think. They had every chance of winning it, but it sort of just comes down to, obviously, a really nice clutch from Madhouse. That's not going to happen every time, but pretty good positioning from those last 2 Panthers tanks, right? You know that you're in a Super Conqueror. You know you have superior DPM to pretty much any tank that's available. And if they are able to get themselves on long firing lines and hit their shots, they're in with a realistic chance. And that's kind of exactly what they did. They outplayed Comets a little bit. PP Power and Atherin, I feel like in that 2-on-1, maybe could have tried to jostle the aggro a little bit better. But that's one of those things you're going to go back and look at and say, yeah, we could have done that better. But yeah, congratulations. Nice clutch, Madhouse.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of wanting to throw at Cthulhu. I mean, Jordan was saying, in the middle of that game, Comet setting themselves up very, very well to win, but couldn't quite put the pieces together. Do you think that's a bit of inexperience getting to Comets, or maybe just something that they need to work on? What do you think?
I think it's just, well, for Comets, especially in that last sort of moment, it certainly felt like just a whole lot of small sort of things didn't really come together. The fact that, the timing of both of the two remaining players not being able to time it well at the same time to push and to get the two shots really ended up being the big culprit. But it's just small sort of mistakes here and there, not really preserving a whole lot of HP amidst all of this sort of chaos didn't particularly help either there for the Comets. Whereas on the side of Panthers, I mean, look, Madhouse kind of just sat pretty on the top of the hill, farmed up his damage and kind of, called it a day.
Yeah, Panthers up 2-0 now, Jordan, and I'm sure a big clutch from Madhouse like that is going to get the boys pumped up. So surely they're setting themselves up nicely to take this series out, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really tough one to lose for Comets because obviously, not only do you put yourself in a winnable position and then lose it. Also, I will say a quick shout out to Twit as well, who was the other member in that clutch for the Panthers. I think the damage that he was able to get out was quite critical in allowing it to be winnable for Madhouse. But yeah, like it's also a 1-1 on your own, a 0-2 on your own map choice rather than a 1-1, which again, we've sort of talked about a lot of times in the past that if you're going to get a 2-0 on any map, generally speaking, you'd assume it should be on your own map choice, which, it feels even worse to go down 0-2 rather than 1-1. Like 1-1 is the bare minimum you need to be achieving on your own map. But unfortunately, they're not able to even do that. So it kind of means now they have to 2-0 their opponent's map choice, which is never really going to be an easy task, particularly for a team like Comets, who is quite new to this league.
Yeah, what do you think of the likelihood of that is Cthulhu, watching Comets play throughout this series? They weren't playing that last map too badly, so you think that they can try and bring this all the way back and do the same that the Panthers just did to them on their opponent's map pick?
Look, I'll be honest, I had a little bit more faith for Comets during the Muravanka. Prokhorovka will be definitely a very, very dicey map for Comets to pull a comeback on, but if they do, that would be one hell of a way to really make it work.
Alrighty, well, let's see if we're going to witness a very awesome comeback or whether it's going to be another quicker series. I'll let you lads get into it.
Very awesome comeback. That would be nice to see. We are moving on to Prokhorovka, though, which is Madhouse's bread and butter. Used to watch him playing the SCRV on the red line in WGL on this map. Many a fond memory of him being the last player alive on his team after getting essentially 7-0'd and farming up some damage. Hopefully, though, that won't be the case this time around. He is in an IS-7, so he'll be leading from the front.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's doing it wrong.
Yeah, the IS-7 could be a big frontliner here, which I'm very much excited to see how things really would work out. Seems like it's a very heavy contention here on the hill, which is usually not the case. Once again, the double medium setup feels curious. I'll call it that because it's definitely quite a difference between the usual setups. Power getting a little bit too keen on his setups does need to start falling back because Twit and Madhouse will just overpeak through the hill.
Yeah, I think PB Power might be up the creek without a paddle here. There's already shots coming through from the railway tracks as well, and that I think is just Panthers showing their experience and their understanding of the map over the Comets a little bit. Madhouse and Twit, yeah, they take a shot each, and Bales is down to half HP, but when it's for the cost of a free tank, basically, we'll take that every day of the week. Panthers now have a 5-on-4 that they can work with, and they should not be losing it from here.
Yeah. So far, Comets kind of seem like they've invested quite a fair bit of things into that control of a hill, but didn't really expect that double IS-7 push, and sort of courtesy of that, forced to kind of scramble all around that position. So much control over the map has been now given away to Panthers purely off the back of just Madhouse and Twit just saying, oh yeah, you want control of the hill? Yeah, nah, that's not happening anytime soon. Bales as well being able to farm up Stife, unfortunately won't really leave a whole lot of, ground here to play, and that's basically free farm. Unfortunately, the RNG does troll in fact there for
scam. He's really getting
definitely
scammed
feels
here.
that definitely feels like my morning runs on for some random battles. That's the similar sort of vibe here I'm getting from Bale's RNG here.
Well, Snipe goes dark, so we don't know if that last shot did connect or not. It didn't. He was on 441 before he went dark. Now Bales has run into Athra and Zula though, so that could actually end up being a dead Bales. Pretty much will be. Don't see Bales getting out of this one alive unless it's a massive throw from his counterpart in the CS63. So it's really just a case of trying to get as much damage down before he does eventually die as possible. That's not ideal for Panthers, but it still leaves them in a pretty good spot here. Big damage onto JS.
Yeah, JS so far not particularly too comfortable, but even more so Stife now sitting on only 441 HP. A single high roll will be basically enough to just completely finish him off. With Athran though falling back after he did get the better of Bales, now it's a good time to just completely back out. 1-2 line, you got yourself a pick. The question now being though, with comments down basically by 2k HP, what is the game plan here? Because with Panthers feeling like they're just an unstoppable legion, sort of slowly but surely chugging on, what is the solution here? Stife will fall in one shot. Athran can't really afford to be the brawler, nor he has a safe position to reset if there's going to be a push towards the one flag. Is it going to be Dark Knight and Mendicant?
I think the key kind of has to be Athran here in that CS63, to be honest. He's the player that has the bit more mobility than anyone else left in this game. Bales in the CS63 is now not a factor, so you're not necessarily going to be getting outspotted by anyone on that Panthers lineup. So I'd like to sort of see him go for a big wrap down through the south. You would assume the way that this game is playing out now, Panthers are probably going to be looking for some pressure on that one flag. I can see the IS-7 of Madhouse is driving in that direction, and I have to imagine he'll just sit on that cap and try to bring Comets to him. But if there's a world where Comets is going to win this game, I think it kind of has to be through the CS63 from the south somewhere. If he can find himself a position to get some free shots off onto the backs of those heavy tanks, and obviously, like the likes of Mendicant and Dark Knight are able to sort of sit on the rail tracks and just toy with them a little bit. Obviously, someone's going to have to find a reset at some point as well. It's a very slim chance for Comets, I'll say, but I think that's the way they're going to have to do it if they're going to get it done.
Yeah. Already with Madhouse starting to apply that pressure with the cap, it's up to basically Twit and JS to hold off that whole onslaught. Plus, there's an S-Conk as well up and around E3. So theoretically, I mean, Comets could pull off, try to pull off try to overmatch, try to get the focus fire going onto Twit, but not anymore as Stife does fall.
Yeah, 1-for-1 though is not the worst thing in the world there for Comets. It would have been nice if Stife would have been able to survive a little bit longer, but I think this is actually not an awful scenario for Comets, given that they're on the defense and Panthers kind of have to come to them. Madhouse has got a nice line, a nice fight to take here against Dark Knight, as long as he's trading one shot for one shot, which he should be able to do because he'll be able to choose when that fight happens. Then he should be able to win that 1v1. I also don't mind this idea. Twit's kind of been isolated a little bit. Dark Knight going to go ahead and help out Mendicant, and even the CS63, Athran might be able to get some shots in on here, or if not onto Twit, at least do some damage to Kuba on that rotate across. Just doesn't look like it's working out too well. Dark Knight's taken a bit too much time to get over that hill. Got farmed up a little bit by Madhouse, I suppose. And Mendicant does go down, perfect. So Panthers now in the perfect spot to win this game.
Yeah. Basically, this round being all kind of closed off in just a brief few moments would basically mean that, that's a 3-pointer for Panthers. Unfortunately for Comets, things definitely not looking as promising as they looked at the beginning, because, again, Muravanka was basically the best-case scenario for them to start scoring the points, but unfortunately, things didn't really happen as much as they could. But Actually,
gonna
never
say-
mind. Hold my beer. Hold it. Yeah, hold that point.
If Goober goes down here, it could be a little problematic for Madhouse, because now he sort of has to gamble on the correct side of the tracks. If he goes right and Atherin goes left, he can't kill Atherin.
Yep, the mobility would be able to outsmart the overall the gun setup.
There's 30 seconds.
Atherin's stuck now in the ditch. He didn't actually rotate. That's not good.
I don't even know. I mean, does Atherin... I think Atherin's played this well. I think, yeah, he's gonna eat a shot going over the tracks. No, he's not even gonna eat a shot going over the tracks, but... Is he spotted?
I mean, Madhouse.
Madhouse is definitely looking for him. That had to hit. That had to pen.
No.
Madhouse cannot win it anymore. The reload is not going to be there unless he high rolls. If he high rolls for 521, that would be unreal. He doesn't. 494. Look, you can't be mad. 494 is still technically a high roll in the IS-7.
Oh, jeez. Atherin's face says it all.
Yeah. Atherin played that really well. Really, really did.
That's not a bad little comeback. I mean, especially considering how that round started. Like, they were basically playing 4v5 right from the get-go there, Cthulhu, but they still make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, it looked honestly a little bit dire from the very beginning with, you know, power going down in the early stages with the way how Comets basically lost, like, initially the 90% of the map and ended up kind of just hurtling down on that one sort of spot. From there, them being able to actually recover themselves actually worked out so perfectly. And the fact that, yeah, in the early stages as well, Bales did get shut down before he could do any more damage. And JS didn't really get a whole lot of leeway for himself in terms of the damage department. Certainly speaks just the right amount as well. But, yeah, I mean, you look at that, basically, it's Mendicant and Atherin doing majority of the legwork there.
That's got to flip the momentum a bit, Jordan. Like, you lose a 1v3, that's got to be a bit demoralizing going into your opponent's map pick, and then you just clench it out after a 4v5. Like, that's got to get the boys pretty fired up and try to bring this to a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think it's definitely a confidence lifter for Comets, who might have just felt a little bit tilted after that last round. They probably should have won it on Moreau. But with that said, Panthers are going to be moving on to the defense now of Prokhorovka. And again, traditionally, the game tends to lean a little bit toward the defense. So Comets have just barely scraped by on their defense. I will say, a very nice win from them, considering it was pretty much 4v5. But job's going to get tougher now as they move into what could potentially be the final round of the series. I'm pretty impressed. Like, I'm quietly impressed by what I'm seeing from Comets. I just don't know if they're going to be able to sort of hold up to winning on the attacking side of Prokhorovka here if things are getting so close in every single one of these rounds.
What do you think is going to be the success factor then for Comets to push it through to a tiebreaker here, Cthulhu, after what you've seen?
I reckon trying to shut down, sort of slow down the initial sort of push, because it's been sort of a big thing for Panthers during this very matchup where they go for that initial big aggression to just try to gauge and try to almost scare the Comets off quite a fair few positions, and then sort of slow it down and just try to play for time. Here, I reckon if Comets don't really give in to that temptation of, you know, over push it and then, you know, try to full send yet again and just play it slow, play it smart, and just wait for essentially for the aggression to come to them, then I reckon actually Comets could really have a solid chance here to push this into the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I think you were even saying it like in the second game of Moro, like when things were kind of boiling down a little bit later into the game. 1v3 aside, that they're in a good position, Jordan. So would you agree with that sentiment?
I think definitely we've seen enough from today to say that Comets could be a good enough team to push this through to the tiebreaker. I also feel like Panthers maybe have let slip some favorable scenarios. They haven't quite 100%ed their rounds. So I also think the peak level of Panthers should be enough to beat the peak level of Comets, but Comets is kind of playing close to their peak, and I'm not sure that Panthers is at the moment. So that would be enough if you combine that to get this through to the tiebreaker.
Let's see if we're going to get another 3-1 or whether we'll finally get to see Cliff. It's a bit of a cliffhanger, so I'll let you boys take it away.
Oh, you're full of them tonight, Pilsky. You're full of them. Look, we'll see what Panthers is going to be able to get done. Double IS-7 on the defense. Super Conk as well. There's a CS-63 and a Minotauro. I will say I don't really like seeing Bales in the CS63 compared to a Batchat. I feel like he's probably the best Batchat player in the league. At least certainly the most consistent. Maybe alongside Russian. It's definitely between those two. But as far as his CS63 play is concerned, I don't feel he has the same impact as he does in a Batchat. I don't think he does in any tank as he does in the Batchat. You know, we see him sometimes in the 50B, for example. So I'd probably prefer to see him in the Batchat. But obviously that's a sort of stylistic choice from the Panthers, and that sort of comes down to what kind of game they want to play. So they put him in a CS63 here, but even last game, I feel like, you know, you don't see the same impact from him in the CS63.
I mean, yeah, it partially as well went down to the fact that, you know, the situation that sort of erupted in the mid game of the last round did certainly require a little bit more of that sort of burst damage rather than, you know, just the consistent sort of chugging on round after round. But I reckon in terms of the way how Panthers set it up, the CS would actually go big here, given that it would sort of almost play as a spotter to the Minotauro of God mode. So I reckon it's not a bad setup. The only issue being here is that apart from the two IS-7s, the rest of the Panthers don't really have... Actually, I was about to say they don't really have a whole lot of, you know, mobility, but there is obviously, yeah, Bales on the CS. It's only the Minotauro and the S-Conk that will really have a little bit of a difficulty in making that quick prompt rotation. But for that very reason, Gube is actually playing on the train track, so it's not as bad. Mendican, though, can be a bit of a thorn in the side here if he gets an early spot and some shots into the S-Conk of Guba.
Well, let us have a look, see what we're going to get from this. Not a bad setup initially from the Comets. Don't mind this. I think this is pretty standard one flag stuff. You're going to get a few tanks just spread out along the ridge. You know, someone toward the north, someone toward the south, just to spot things out. And then whack your tank onto the one flag, whether it's an IS-7 or, you know, sometimes we see like even a T100 LT or something like that. It sort of depends on what kind of vibe you want to go for. I think I'm personally more of a fan of the IS-7. Like, everyone knows there's going to be a tank on the cap. Generally speaking, it's not a difficult cap to find resets on anyway. So I think you just get that extra bit of brawling power out of the IS-7 over the T100 LT.
Definitely.
So let's see now what the answer is going to be from the Panthers.
And I mean, the general sort of a little bit of extra sort of armored troll profile does sort of help as well if somebody does decide to YOLO push you. So certainly will agree with you here, Elfish. Speaking about actually full YOLO push, Twit decided to full on, well, go over the train tracks to get into the ditch to try to maybe contest with PP Power, which, in my opinion, a little bit ill-advised. But, I mean, it could work out. What do you reckon?
I mean, I like this setup so far for the Comets. It's always a little bit scary when you're having to go for this reset if you haven't got a HP lead. Because Panthers here, they will expect to see a lot of damage go down onto Twit when he inevitably does have to push over to get the reset onto PP Power. He should be copying probably 2 or 3 shots worth of damage. And right now, Panthers is only 1 shot worth of HP up in the lead. So 1 for 1. I mean, I guess in the sense that Twit goes and gets 1 shot into PP Power, but it was a HE shell. So again, that's just at this point in time a bit of free bleed onto the Panthers from Comets. Twit gets the reset, but he's going to have to get another probably 2 or 3 for this game. So by that stage, he's going to be down to pretty much a 1 shot if it continues as is.
Yeah. No real control from Bales either on the J6, J7 sort of position. Whereas full, very thorough control over the left side of the map by the Comets, which does sort of instill a little bit more confidence into how they could really play this out. If they do manage to push this again, I did mention before that it would feel like a bit of a miracle, but the way how they actually conducted themselves felt like, at least in terms of the second round on Prokhorovka, this feels like a much more, you know, a very well-educated sort of approach rather than, you know, preying onto a low roll that happened back in the first round of the proc.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to feel like this one might end up being a tiebreaker. PP Power is just going to call it and say, look, I'm going to go straight on over. maybe not a bad choice for the Comets, given that the time is getting low. We always say 2.5 minutes is pretty much when you need to send it on the attack, otherwise you'll run out of time. Twit, though, is making good of it and just surviving for as long as he possibly can. Bales down there in the pip is doing a lot of damage. Ignite onto Madhouse, or from Madhouse. PP Power is on 80 HP. Comets, they gave it a crack. Hasn't worked out. It's Panthers' game to lose now.
Very much so, yeah. With Mendican being all out in the open, Twit might even be able to chuck in 1 or 2 more shots because nobody's actually aiming at him. Arthur might be able to go for a bit of a shutdown, and yeah, finally Twit does fall. But amidst all of that, actually, yeah, Panthers might just be able to hunker down. 3k up on HP certainly does instill quite a fair bit more confidence into the squad in blue.
Yeah, Panthers kind of called the bluff a little bit there and just said, look, you have to come to us. We're going to continue to get these resets and play that timer. And it looked like it was going to be a bit awkward for Panthers, right? Because Twit was starting to get low. You thought if he goes over for one more reset, then maybe there's problems for Panthers and he gets a little bit too low to be effective. But I just think Comets didn't quite get enough damage done before they pressed that full send button. And when you're the team that moves first, you're going to be the team that runs into the crossfire and you're going to take all of that free damage. And Panthers, they were able to hit their shots onto the tanks that were crossing on the A line. And so that stood them in good stead. It wasn't a bad attempt from Comets, really wasn't. It's been a good night for them, all things considered. I think 3-1. It could have been 2-2 in another world, but Panthers just a little bit more solid, a little bit more well-drilled, and that's what you've come to expect from teams in the ANZ PL and teams with a lot of experience against teams that are a little bit fresher. But even though it's going to be a loss for Comets, I'll say I think they played well tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I mentioned sort of at the very beginning in the pre-show for this matchup, is that it's, you know, the veterans of the scene at this point versus the fresh introductions into the ANZ PL, albeit a few of the players of the Comets have the sort of the Season 1/WGL experience from, if memory does serve me right. It's still, it's a fresh new roster. Unfortunately for them, it doesn't really translate into a win. For Panthers, though, they continuing strong.
There you go, Panthers taking away the win. We get ourselves another 3-1. And look, as far as a Bales debut in front of Jordan's eyes, you got to be happy with that, right?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think he played poorly, put it that way, but it's not up to the same caliber of Bale's performances that I've been used to, put it that way. So I think he's definitely got another level that he can hit. I'm used to seeing 4k damage like 3 or 4 times in a series. Didn't hit that mark tonight. I think he had a pretty good game there on proc. Would have to sort of see the stats, but overall, yeah, not a bad start, but Bales do better.
I think you're kicking yourselves a little bit if your comments there, Cthulhu, because that definitely could have gone through towards a tiebreaker. I mean, that map, one thing, obviously as they pushed in like around the 2.5 minute mark, couldn't quite get it done. But even just looking back at other things like the 1v3, there's a couple of different moments in this series where they could have just pushed it a little bit further. So what do you think the takeaways for these guys are?
I think really is just, I think what mostly just betrayed them is the Muravanka performance, because Prokhorovka was already expected from the get-go to be a little bit more of a difficult sort of scenario where they would have to do something unusual, where they would have to, pull something that it could get a little bit more problematic in terms of Panthers to kind of read into. And I mean, kudos to them. They did do their best to try to, pull that sort of almost a bluff like Jordan called it. But I think it's just more so tightening up their coordination and comms on their own sort of map picks is where I think would be the next step for Comets. But otherwise, look, they are on a very good sort of trajectory to get themselves, running pretty well.
Is this what you expected out of this matchup, Jordan? You said you were pleasantly surprised with the comments, but in the grand scheme of the leagues, do you think they need a win series like this to actually make it through and towards the next stage, or do you think there's a couple of other opponents that they could probably be taking down along the way?
I think Panthers is, I would say on paper, going to be one of the tougher opponents, but with that in mind, I kind of look at Action X in a similar kind of position. So realistically for Comets, the only team I'm looking at right now that they could possibly beat is Matilda's, and they've already lost to them in at least the first round robin. So they will get another bite at the cherry in the second round robin, but every other team is kind of looking like they're just a little bit of a cut above both the Comets and the Matildas right now. So it's kind of like a bit of a non-answer to your question. Like, the answer is yes, they do need to be winning this series if they want to make it into the playoffs, because realistically, this and the games against Action X and Matildas are probably going to be the more winnable games for them. But I'm just not sure they're at that level yet. If you get what I'm saying, like I do think they're a team that is impressing me. I am happy with what I saw from them this week, but I also don't think they're a playoffs contender yet. And if they're not able to beat Panthers, if they're not able to beat Action X, then that definitely is going to sort of be an example of that.
And how about for Panthers here, Cthulhu? Were you happy with how well they put away with that series?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they've played the series really, really well. The concerns that I had for Muravanka certainly were dissipated rather quickly with the way how, the general sort of pressure has been handled, especially that round number one certainly looked pretty well. And I mean, even including the clutch that came out in round number 2 on Muro was just rather stellar.
Yeah, 100%. So, look, let's have a chat to someone from the Panthers, someone that went kind of big and had himself a nice big 1v3. I'm sure that got all the boys pumped up, Madhouse.
Oh, there was some serious excitement there.
You're muted, Mad, in Discord.
Get himself unmuted.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, did that get everyone pumped up? What do you reckon?
Oh yeah, people were excited about that one. I think someone even blurted out they love me.
Oh, very nice.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Certainly couldn't have been in a game with me, because I would never say something nice like that about you.
Oh, definitely not.
Talk us through that clutch. Obviously, I'm sort of looking at it more from the 2 versus 3 perspective, because I feel like Twit's damage was pretty impactful in allowing you to actually clutch that out 1-on-3. But what was sort of the mentality once you and Twit are now recognizing, yep, we're in this 2-on-3. We've got 2 super conks. What are you trying to do? What's like the idea? What are you trying to isolate? What are you trying to sort of figure out as those 2 super conquerors to sort of give you the possibility of winning that round?
So the first thing I wanted to try to do was to kill the super conks. It was just so low and so out of the fight in front of me, and that was the whole goal from the beginning, to go kill that super conk that was offside. But once we got one shot into him and he was completely behind the building, I wasn't going to waste my time having to drive around the building and shoot him. So I was just trying to get the damage out, because it was clear that was it Gubayev wasn't going to live. So it was at that point, once I was like, there's no point chasing this guy down. Let's just try to kill the AMX. And then we got him low enough, and then luckily I was able to clutch it out a bit. I was a bit worried in the end when I was failing to pen the M4 mantlet over and over. But he shouldn't have probably pushed in. Probably should have tried to HE me, but he pushed in and gave me his low plate, and that was the finishing shot there.
Oh yeah. Look, now we've got to see already quite a few matches with the newest Italian tank destroyer coming into the play. Quite a fair few teams getting on board with, experimenting with it, bringing it on board. In your opinion, so far, does it have a place to be in the meta? Does it sort of replace a few roles, or is it more so going to be kind of a niche pick for 1 or 2 maps?
I feel like most hull down positions that don't require a lot of mobility, you're just going to see a Minotaur picked in it, because hull down, the thing's basically invincible. I got Cupola penned in it. That was unlucky, I guess. But it is basically invincible when you hull down, so you're going to see teams picking a lot whenever there's a position that I guess normally would be a super conqueror position. If they can do it, they're going to put a Minotaur on it now.
Alrighty, well, cheers for the interview, Madhouse. I'll let you go celebrate your 3-1 victory there.
No worries. Cheers for the interview.
There you go. Always good to get some insight, especially when someone has like a big clutch play or something like that. They can kind of talk you through everything that happened. And yeah, I mean, he played relatively well. Were you happy with his performance tonight, Jordan?
I was very happy with his performance. I think he did troll a little bit on the Prokhorov that they did lose, but end of the day, there was more good than bad from Madhouse tonight. So yeah, we'll take it.
There you go. So Cthulhu now, I mean, with Panthers getting themselves another dub on the board, they're doing pretty well in round robin. How are you feeling about the rest of their games?
Honestly, with the way how they've been approaching this, it certainly seemed to have revitalized kind of the general approach to it. They're certainly looking like yet another very strong roster. For once, season 5, whilst yes, we have, Sentinels and Scorpions, we've kind of highlighted them to be, the two rosters that are very, very stable. I think in terms of season 5, there's going to be a whole lot more rosters that will be contesting that sort of top 2, if not the top 3 sort of position. So I'm certainly excited with Panthers getting that sort of a boost in their performance, with Action Next starting their run, Comets possibly getting the late run sort of improvement later down the line. A lot of prospects are certainly looking very bright.
Alrighty, well, we got only one more series left for tonight. It is going to be the Sydney Derby, but before we get towards that series, let's go for a quick break and we'll see you back here soon.
The final Battle Pass season of the year will begin very soon. This is your last chance to earn more tokens and spend them on unique tanks. So, it's time to take what you rightfully earned. Season 9 is almost upon us. Get ready for 3 chapters with new 3D styles for 3 excellent Tier 10 vehicles. And for the first time, each style has a built-in camouflage that will appear as you progress. This season, the 3 styles are Bernard, for the robust Hussar 60 TP Lewandowski goal. Cesare, for the glorious Legionnaire Progetto M40 Mod 65. And Le Vizier for the AMX 13105, a first for a light tank. And to command these impressive vehicles, we have a Polish veteran with a heart of gold, a proud son of Rome who will never abandon his tank, and a former French actress who fell in love with the role of a brave tanker. On top of all that, players can expect tons of other rewards, both with the base pass and improved pass. But before you can get these rewards, you will need to select a chapter. You can switch between chapters whenever you would like. All of your progress will be saved. As usual, you can move through stages faster with an improved pass. The Battle Pass chapters can be completed in most game modes. Points can be earned for battling in Tier 6 to 10 vehicles, or for completing daily missions in any vehicle. Remember that you can earn more points by playing in core vehicles. In addition to chapter progression, you can spend your Battle Pass points in a special section of the in-game store. Available items include commanders and styles from previous seasons. And don't forget to check out our offers for tokens. If you've been saving up all of your tokens this year to buy, say, the Cobra with its terrifying magazine of head shells, you're in luck. Season 9 is the best time to earn the extra tokens you'll need to purchase your long-awaited reward. Once the season ends, your remaining tokens will be converted into bonds. After all, this is the last Battle Pass of the year. Good luck on the road to rewards.
All right, last series of the night, we do have our Sydney derby, and a bit of a rematch from last season is, of course, Scorpions versus the Sentinels. And Jordan, once again, every break, you're telling me how hyped you are from this for the next match, but this time you hit another level. The excitement levels were just overflowing in the break.
This
and
that's how I feel.
What were you? Yeah, I know. Obviously this is going to be the rematch, and you were telling me how much you love both of these teams. So
Look,
what are you excited for?
You've actually, I know you're doing this ironically, but you've unironically hit the nail on the head, because this is the best match of the night, and probably this is what should be one of the best matches of the season as well. It's always a big occasion when we get to see Scorpions playing against Sentinels, because historically they've been two very strong sides pretty much from the outset of Season 1 of ANZPL. Scorpions, they took a bit of a longer route to get toward the top of the table, but Sentinels from Season 1, they were the team to beat. Scorpions were kind of Season 1, they were good-ish. Season 2, they got better. It continues on to last season, where they actually made the grand final, and hopefully we're going to see some good stuff from this season. Scorpions, though, are sitting at the top of the table this season, and Sentinels took a bit of a fall last week. So we're in a bit of an interesting situation where if Scorpions actually is able to win this one, they're quite solidly at the end of, at least of the first round robin, going to be able to put themselves at the top of the table. Whereas if they lose, there's all sorts of tiebreakers now to start thinking about, with Sentinels and Scorpions and a couple of other teams being pretty close together on the scoreboard. So it'll be interesting to see how the results of this game do sort of factor into that scoreboard at the end of the week.
We may as well take you through some of the players that will be playing tonight. So we'll start it off, I believe, with the Scorpions, and you could spit us a bit of a yarn about this team here, Cthulhu.
Yeah, look, it's a roster that went through quite a number of seasons without really doing any changes. Really, it's a roster that has seen a really sort of solid run last season. Unfortunately, couldn't really make it to, or rather grab the first place. But yeah, look, there's not much bad to really say about Scorpions. It's a very stable, very sturdy roster that can perform when need be. And for when you have players like Russian, like JT, like Aussie, like Knight, they all can perform on their own. And when you have the ability to play the autoloaders like Russian, to be that sort of the ultimate assassin for Scorpions, yeah, it's a scary team to play against.
Yeah, JT looking very beautiful on the cameras tonight. Do love to see it. Look, South Sydney is something that I usually associate with not a lot of good things, honestly. So let's have a little bit of a chat about the North Sydney side, because that's something I'm a little bit more familiar with, Jordan. What can you tell us about the Sentinels?
Well, what can I tell you about the Sentinels? I think every time we go through this roster, we kind of say the same thing. They are, on paper, probably the best team in the region, but it's just a question as to whether they're going to turn up on the day, which players are going to be involved in any given game. Realistically, I think Sentinels, when they want to beat you, they will beat you. But sometimes in the regular season, they just don't care that much. They don't worry. It's not that they don't want to beat you, but it's just that they're like, well, whatever. We'll beat them in the playoffs. But I think when they do go up against the Scorpions, there is a bit of a grudge match. There is a bit of a rivalry. And Pilsky, I don't know if you know, because you probably haven't watched a lot of the history of ANZPL, but there is a little bit of a Scorpions curse in this matchup. They very rarely beat the Sentinels, even when they've been having a better season, when they've looked better, when they're up 2-0. They very often find a way to throw that game away. And we'll have to wait and see whether we're going to get that again tonight. I know it happened at least once last season where Scorpions was up 2-0 and then they weren't able to close it out. They got reverse swept. And I believe the other time they played in regular season, Scorpions did beat them. But once it come to playoffs, then it pretty much went all the way of Sentinels. So I would be... Look, I actually know I predicted Scorpions for this matchup. My heart kind of says Scorpions, because I always like to predict for the quote-unquote underdog in any given matchup in this one, but the head kind of says Sentinels. The only reason I actually went the way of Scorpions last season was... for the predictions, not last season. The way I went Scorpions for this prediction was that Sentinels had a bit of a rough week last week, and Scorpions so far have been actually quite good. So, giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I am very prepared to be proven wrong tonight by Sentinels. as has happened plenty of times.
Look, Returned was looking quite handsome there with the Mo and Mullet combo. I think the only thing that could have made that look better is a HyperX headset. Obviously, thanks a lot to HyperX for supporting the league and making all of this possible. And here again, we get a Muravanka Cthulhu. And we're going to start it off with a little bit of a different one I haven't seen yet. We get Himmelsdorf out of the Scorpions. That's, again, a second team to throw a bit of a spanner in the works and try something different. Do you think this is a case of just, it's the regular season, first set of round-robin games, we'll try it out, we'll see how it goes, we'll feel things out a little bit, or you think they're trying to go for something particular in this matchup?
I think Sentinels will definitely have quite a fair good idea as to how to, approach all these maps, Muravanka being sort of one of those quote-unquote the newer reiterations, could definitely throw off quite a fair few teams off the guard, especially in the first few weeks of it being now introduced, given that it's the first week of us seeing it to pop up. But Himmelsdorf should be a really good sort of brawl map where we will be seeing, no matter what, a very quick momentum increase.
Alrighty, well, let's get into the action and get ready for this matchup that we've all been waiting for. I'll let you lads take it away for the first map.
I think it's a pretty ballsy pick, to be honest, from the Scorpions. It's always historically been a Sentinels map. It's been one that they're very, very comfortable on. We know they've got a lot of really good heavy tank players as well on that roster, and I mean, it's no surprises to see pretty much a full heavy tank roster out from both teams. A little bit more mobile in the case of Scorpions because they do have that 50B on Russian. It's like both teams wanting to play toward their strengths, right? Scorpions know they've got a really good, flexible autoloader player in Russian who is kind of someone that can be self-sufficient and can do what he needs to do without too much direction. But they put him in a tank where he can kind of succeed in that role. Whereas for Sentinels, they know they're a very, very coordinated team. They like to team fight. They're very, very good at communicating and juggling aggro and whatnot. So they've gone for that kind of a composition as their win condition. I think both teams, from the outset, happy with what they've brought to the table here, but now it's just going to be a case of who executes on their composition better.
Yeah, I mean, name a more iconic duo than Russian and the 50B. Certainly a very strong player, but absolutely, yeah. But you are 100% correct here, Jordan. The sort of the comfort zone play is very much important here. Surprised that the Russian, amidst all of that chaos, didn't really get hit by either one of the shells. But I mean, good for Scorpions here because they will need all of the HP possible to really survive this absolute onslaught.
I am not feeling too confident for Scorpions anymore. That is a lot of distance traveled for the Sentinels without having taken any damage at all. Knight, again, not able to slide a shot through, so this is Sentinels, all 5 members onto the cap. They might even continue to just push their way forward here. Russian is very isolated if they decide to head in his direction. Good shots do come through on that cross from Scorpions, but Knight now is actually going to end up being that focus of fire. He's in a 1-on-3. Russian's already fired all of his shots. He probably needs to be on reload already 5 seconds ago. Knight's dead. Knight is gone.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a case of whether or not he can take someone with him or get Rainbow down to a 1-shot, or if Scorpions can trade that back. I think they're just a little bit too slow on the rotate here, but this is exactly what I was saying about Scorpions versus Sentinels. You're always expecting to see Sentinels be this decisive team, be this team-fighting, brawling team, and I think as Scorpions, you kind of have to be expecting something like this going into this game. They've given up a little bit too much rope to bring back from now, in my opinion, but this next clip from Russian is going to be super, super important. If they're to do it, it's going to have to happen here. I don't see it happening, though.
Yeah, I mean, with JT about to get pressured by 2 E100 as well, that's a good isolation. With return Cindy and Rainbow as well being able to generate that sort of crossfire, that is a good sort of numbers play, because the hold down play for AMX is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Raspberry might just get picked off here literally for free. I say that though Dell does fall amidst all of this kerfuffle, whilst JT actually being able to stay alive pretty well. As long as Russian is able to get eliminated in the early stages before he fully unloads the whole clip, that would have been good, but suppose gotta make do. It doesn't matter, yeah. 2 of the tanks are basically now 1 shot.
Yeah, and there's still 4 minutes left on the clock here. So decisive was the push from Sentinels that they have pretty much wiped the floor with Scorpions on the outset. It's also Scorpions map choice. JT, 15 HP here. He knows it's pretty much done, but he is going to try to give it a crack to get at least one more shot in for the fantasy pointers. And he is able to do so. 555 damage. Nice HE shot in there from Rainbow. Gets it done. Look, that was pretty good from Sentinel, Spilsky. I don't know, but a bit scared.
That was a bit more of a page out of the first page. It almost felt like watching the Matildas, except they were a bit more coordinated. They were a bit more cohesive in what they were trying to do. I really liked the fact that they just went straight in and just pinched that one player. You know, as soon as they saw the setup that the Scorpions was kind of using their Cthulhu, they knew exactly how they wanted to approach it, and they executed it well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the absolute overflow directly onto one of the players just to completely isolate, to turn it into already from the get-go a numbers disadvantage game for Scorpion certainly made things a lot more problematic for their defense to just hold off any sort of further aggression. I mean, from there on, being able to very quickly decouple, get the 2-100s to pressure JT whilst the rest of the team was engaging into a 3v3 pool. I mean, that was just basically all a very well orchestrated sort of approach by Sentinels, whereas on the side of for Scorpions, it almost feels like a very sort of similar situation to how our very first matchup went. The Ghost Town first round of Matildas versus Action X setting up for, you know, the big brain strat setup, whereas they just ended up getting rushed on. So same kind of feels here, but it's just a little bit more cohesive in terms of the rush play from Sentinels.
Well, Scorpions obviously are going ahead with this map pick, and they didn't get what they wanted out of that first side. Now, taking a look at the stats and knowing that the sides are going to switch over, what do you think their approach is going to be here, Jordan?
Well, they are going to be on the attack, Scorpions, so I wouldn't expect them to change too much up in terms of tank lineups. Maybe not bringing the double IS4. We'll sort of see whether or not that does come through, although that has become a bit of a trademark of Scorpions, so yeah, just have to wait and see. I don't think you'll see much different, to be honest, in terms of lineups from either team. We probably will see a little bit of a slower game out here from Scorpions on the attack. They do tend to be one of those teams that likes to sort of just play the map a little bit more. Whereas the Sentinels, I think once they recognize there's an opening, they just go for it. And this is actually one of the areas of, like, the entire map pool, really, where you can just send it this hard and kind of get away with it. Because you're driving down a massive hill, which is essentially just a ramp for all these heavy tanks, you're actually able to get on top of the defenders a lot quicker than they can even rotate across. And you kind of saw that. Scorpions were, in a sense, almost fighting like a 2v5 for a little while. They did have some players set up to do damage on the cross, but yeah, if you're getting one shot in on the cross, whereas Sentinels are pretty much taking a tank out of the picture, then it's really not quite worth it. But yeah, I think based on what we're expecting from the Scorpions, it's just going to be a little bit of a slower approach on the attack. Sentinels will be more than happy to just sit back, wait that timer down. We'll see a little bit more of a standard game out here. But that really is a cornet throwing down at the Scorpions by Sentinels. They basically said, look, this is our map. You picked it, but we love it, so come at us, or we'll come at you.
So you think what's the thought process behind the map pick there, Cthulhu? You know, are they trying to mix in a little bit of prep? You talked about the fact that you know, these two teams are relatively familiar with each other. They know how each other plays and have played each other many times at this point. So picking into a map that your opponent's comfortable on, moving into the attack side, you can kind of be a bit more assertive. I'll let you guys take it away. But what do you think their approach is going to be? A bit of a slower style, like Jordan suggested, or?
Honestly, yeah, I think slow start could be a decent idea, given that it usually has been sort of a general consensus, minus, you know, the Mines, Rest and Pepe is that map, unfortunately, no more of a pick option for the Scorpions. But yeah, absolutely, I think for Scorpions, it's either going to be a very sort of paced down, try to, you know, whittle down some of the reinforcements, some of the setups, or it is going to be a very quick and precise, and I mean, well, the 113 pick, you know, JT being the sole enjoyer of that tank. I mean, look, JT pushing Banana doesn't usually bode too well. I mean, remembering all the memes from the last season,
I'm not
he
sold
might
on
get
this at all.
punished here very heavily, yeah.
Yeah, Dell should be able to put a bit more damage into JT, and by the looks of things this is not a bad attempt there from Russian. 2 shots through, I believe, panning onto Rainbow. Maybe it was 3 in the end from him, or 2 from him and 1 from someone else. either way, it sort of has balanced out the damage that JT has taken. But we are getting exactly what we thought, aren't we? You know, a much slower game out from both of these two teams. Scorpions just trying to work the angles, see what they can find early on in the piece. Sentinels very much just setting up pretty default. Rainbow does cop a lot more damage than I'm sure he would be happy with. But end of the day, both teams kind of walking away from that engagement, not super disappointed. I think the individuals that have copped the damage, both JT and Rainbow respectively, will look at that and say that wasn't ideal. But for the most part, the fact that it's an even trade leaves both teams pretty okay.
Yeah, at the very least, look, the good redemption is that JT didn't completely fall apart. It's that initial sort of kerfuffle. But yeah, as we expected, this is a very much of a kind of a drawn out already sort of play. Yes, Scorpions are making some of those rotations through their spawn. Yes, the IS-4 and the AMX's M454 have decided to, you know, abandon the left flank quite thoroughly. So it seems like maybe it is going to be, you know, sort of a poke towards the 2 flag. But at least judging by the positional setup so far, it entices that it will be, yeah, like cut through strictly through the park, where Aussie could get isolated pretty quickly. I say that though, so far not a single person actually able to nail the shot. So whilst yes, spotted, but untouched.
Interesting little stalemate between Dell and Aussie.
He's like, oh yeah, hello, good day, mate.
Yeah. How are you doing? Yeah, good. How are you doing? Yeah, good. All right, carry on. Don't mind me just getting the boys over. Knight and Raspberry surely do get spotted. And this is where the trap is actually... Sort of feels like Scorpions is trying to spring the trap, but I think Sentinels is actually the ones to spring the trap. Although they may be a little bit late here to help out Dell. How he has not taken more damage than that on the initial entrance, I'm not too sure. I believe Knight didn't manage to get his through, and this is now starting to look very awkward indeed for Scorpions. They cannot be affording to bounce this many shells. Raspberry is set on fire as well. It's just not good at all. And that is pretty much going to be Himmelsdorf done and dusted. If they're going to push like that, they need to be killing Dell a lot faster than they have. And I don't even think they're going to kill Dell. So we might be saying goodbye to Himmelsdorf 2-0, favoring the Sentinels in just a minute. Russian's been spotted on the way down. He'll get a full clip out in that 50B, but beyond that, probably not much more.
That's basically it. Game over for Himmelsdorf, which honestly felt a little bit anticlimactic, in my opinion, given that Himmelsdorf, sort of in general, kind of feels like it could have been a good comfort ground for Scorpions. The Russian going out in quite the blaze, probably not the blaze of glory, but yeah, look, Sentinels keeping it nice and steady. Wymo getting to flex his stash, and Rainbow looking just about as excited as he always.
I thought this was meant to be a close game, boys. What's going on here, Jordan? This looks way too easy for Sentinels right now. They are just crunching on their opponents. It was the same. It felt like a similar thing on attack and defense. Like that was a nice little bait setup where they came in and just dealt with the Scorpions pretty easily.
I did tell you about that Scorpions curse in this matchup.
Okay,
they just
explain it a little bit more depth for me, a bit more background.
They can literally beat anyone. Any other team, but when they verse the Sentinels, it's just like something breaks in this team, whether it's a mental thing or Sentinels just play 10 times better against the Scorpions than they do against anyone else. It's like, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, it just seems like insurmountable every single time Scorpions plays. And even if Scorpions was up 2-0 right now, you'd probably have me sitting here going, series is not over. We've seen it before. Reverse sweeps can happen. I'm looking at this now and going, geez, if Scorpions is going to win this, they have to reverse sweep. That does not fill me with a whole lot of confidence. That was not pretty either for the Scorpions. I mean, just looking at the damage numbers, the fantasy point numbers there, it's not a good day at the office.
I mean, it's pretty well-rounded performance there, you know, no single standout Cthulhu, all of the boys on Sentinels getting it done together, and you could even see it from the gameplay. Like, they just had a great approach, and there was no one that was ever really left outside the action, attack or defense. They were all getting in on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone did manage to get on board on the side of Sentinels. They, like Elfish said, it was a kind of a well-sprung trap. And basically just, yeah, everyone got to get on board with the points. Everyone got their fantasy points going rather nicely. Whereas on the side of Scorpions, yeah, look, they tried to, just break the ice here, and unfortunately just not much really came out of it. I mean, 3 players not really having particularly the brightest performance out of all of them. I mean, for Knight, GT, and Raspberry, things went rather dire, and not much really to be said apart from the fact that the curse seems to be continuing here in a rather unfortunate manner. Maybe Moravanka is going to be a different thing, but the one thing that I kind of almost completely forgot with the fact that, Mines, that used to be the big comfort ground for Scorpions and a map that they managed to keep a very heavy favorable win rate for themselves, now being no more in the map pools. What is going to be the general sort of fate of Scorpions?
Well, touch on that for me then, Jordan. I mean, at least these kind of close quarters battles, Sentinels look like they were well in their element, but now we're moving on to Muravanka, even though it is their map peak, so obviously they're going to be well prepared for it. But do you think that's going to help Scorpions out at all, or you think that the curse is just transcends all logic, all other discussion points?
I want to say I think it does transcend all the other talking points, but at least in the case of this last map, if I had to sort of try to provide some intelligent thought, which obviously doesn't happen very often when we're talking World of Tanks.
Especially from you.
Yeah, especially from me. I will say, I think Scorpions do have the edge in terms of bat chat players. I think Russians pretty much up there with the best of the league, and if we're looking on the other side of the coin, it's probably like either Rainbow or Cindy that's going to pick up the bat chat if we do get one on their side. And I find them to be a little bit more inconsistent in that role than Russian is, so yeah, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'll say maybe Scorpions have a better chance here on Muro, which is weird to say because it's not their choice, but it is newly changed, so I think that makes it a lot more difficult to predict.
All right, Cthulhu, I'll leave it to you guys to cast, but surely we don't get our first 3-0 of the night. I'm hoping for another 3-1 at least, maybe even a tiebreaker.
Yeah, surely we'll get a little bit more now congestion now that it's no longer the Himmelsdorf, the absolute labyrinth of the map that sometimes just gets you locked in and can't really find a whole lot of return on investment there. So this one should provide us with a little bit more sort of contextual approach with what sort of Scorpions are looking to bring in. Already a lot of damage coming into Rainbow, full send as a matter of fact. Actually,
yeah, this is actually kind of good for the Scorpions if they're able to just get rid of Rainbow right off the outset, as long as Knight is able to pen his shot, which he should be able to do. That's the side of a tank. Scorpion's in a pretty good standing. JT is low. He might survive long enough to get one more shot off, which would be awesome. He does. Rowendi is now starting to get focused down, and I mean, JT, he's even still alive. So Scorpions fight fire with fire, and sometimes this is where they do their best work. If you think about it, going back to the games they played on Mines, they always looked really good in the very early brawls. It's a bit of a different flavor because it's sort of heavy tanks here rather than the lighter lineups that we got a little bit more on Mines. And we'll also mention, actually, Russian's not in. Napalmer is in here for him for this game. So, interesting change up from the Scorpions. But, yeah, 3-on-4. They should be able to close this one out pretty comfortably. I think they've just sort of beat Sentinels with pace. I don't think Sentinels was expecting that at all. And it's not a bad shout on the defense because it does look like that one flag is quite hard to defend. So, maybe you just kind of go for the 50-50, send it, and if Sentinels attack the one flag, you kind of win by catching them off guard, which is exactly what they've done.
Just do the Matildas on Siegfried line and just full-on get aggressive even whilst on the defense. Certainly worked out quite well. Maybe the whole of Himmelsdorf was a ruse from Scorpions just to get Sentinels too relaxed. Who knows? But yeah, that's a quick wrap-up here in a much faster pace, as I would imagine that this would also serve as a really nice sort of mental reset here.
I guess it's not just Counter-Strike. We're just all the Oceanic teams winning each other's map picks in every title, apparently. And look, that was much more convincing there from the Scorpions, Jordan.
Yes, it was. That said, it's not like the kind of game which fills you a lot of confidence, to be honest, because...
Just cheesed them, you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit cheesy. Obviously there's an idea going through there for the Scorpions, and that's fair enough. Like, they know what they're doing in that kind of scenario, but usually when you play a faster style like that, I know this is going to sound really dumb, but it either works or it doesn't. I know that's not a very eloquent way of putting it, but I think you get my point. If it works really well and it looks really good. Exactly that. But if it doesn't work, if you know, Sentinels just pump the brakes a little bit, set up and play it a little bit slower, suddenly you're out of position and they're going to be able to sort of exploit that. So in this case, it worked, but I also kind of want to be seeing them win a little bit more of a standard game of World of Tanks if I'm going to start feeling as though that my prediction is going to be correct today of Scorpions winning. What I will also say, and I didn't get a chance to do it before we jumped into that game, is that I think it is actually kind of important for Scorpions, if nothing else, to at least get this one through to the tiebreaker, to take at least a point away from Sentinels, maintain that first place position on the standings, because obviously any point that you take away from Sentinels is very likely going to be a point that most other teams aren't taking away. So you can be pretty happy with taking even a tiebreaker loss against them here.
Oh, he had a good one from Napalmer there. Cthulhu, even, I mean, both figuratively and literally running circles around his opponents towards the end there. That was quite something to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, managed to make it work really, really well in tandem with Raspberry, pushing initially the Minotauro off the return. Then Dell as well fell amidst all of that chaos. So, no, it's yeah, absolutely was solid from the Scorpion squad, which kind of gets themselves nice and reset. Obviously, they're not out of this yet. Far from it, as a matter of fact. So, the second round will be very much impactful. Now, with Sentinels sort of now questioning as to we are going to be seeing, you know, a full send yet again for Scorpions. Is it going to be a very, you know, a slowed down play? And if it is a slowed down play, we might be seeing North Sydney Sentinels to be able to sort of find a good rotation, find a good sort of counterplay against the Scorp. So I think as long as the Scorpions are able to keep up that sort of unpredictability, this is where they will thrive and will be able to break the curse against the Sentinels.
Bit of a mind game then, Jordan. What do you think they're going to be going with?
I have no idea. I mean, the attacking side of Miro is going to be a hard one to call. I haven't really seen it yet so far from Scorpions on this new map, so we'll have to wait and see what we do get. But I don't expect that we're going to be seeing something similar to that from the Sentinels on their defense. I don't expect that they'll be playing, you know, anywhere near as aggressively on their defense.
Fair enough. And look, Cthulhu, what do you think are the success factors? I mean, we talked about Napalmer going a little bit huge. Is it always the same kind of players that you're looking towards when you switch over sides, or is there certain skill sets and certain key players that you think perform better on either which side?
I think, generally speaking, you would be looking out onto the similar sort of players to perform on either one of the sides. It's usually, though, seeing more so the change in how much of an impact could be the scout players like Napalmer, who was in the CS63 there and managed to actually farm up quite a storm.
All right, we'll keep an eye on him as we head into the fourth side here of the second map. Do have the boys on Scorpions right up against the rope, but at least they're showing some sides of life. Take it away, boys.
Yeah, I think another point to that is also maybe just a comfort thing. Like certain players will play more comfortably in certain tanks, and that can be something where, you know, you might see a little bit of a hot swap for one round in particular if there's a certain tank that they want to bring. In this case, we've got actually Russian back in, and that's likely because they want to play a Batchat, right? I think no one's going to argue the fact that Russian is a better Batchat player than Napalmer, so that's obviously a pretty straightforward swap that they're going to go through for once again, but maybe Napalmer's a little more comfortable in the CS63 than what Russian is, and so that's why they've given him that game time. Quick play on the attack from Scorpions. Get onto the cap early on in the piece, start putting some pressure on. Russian, however, has really been collapsed upon by a few members, and Aussie now as well, spotted out. Start to eat some damage. So Sentinels, they do actually play quite aggressively on their defense, but I feel like, again, looking at the defensive lineup, you have to expect this as Scorpions. Double Batchat, they're going to try to push the field side.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The double Batchat needs to work out here. It needs to be, you know, a very well executed sort of in tandem with each other to be able to combine the clip damage as well. Nice. Rowandy about to be collapsed onto, which could be rather problematic for Rowandy, that is. But it should be utilized as a sort of opportunity for the Batchats to start acting up, to start actually dishing out the damage.
Well, this is really good from the Scorpions, actually. They've completely isolated Rowandy, and he is definitely going to be done and dusted. Raspberry suffering a similar fate, but he should be able to just get around the corner here and play Hull down, try to, play with his HP a little bit, get a bit of backup from some of the other lads that can now start to turn around. Great shot in, though, from Rainbow, and I think maybe even Return snuck one in there onto JT to equalize things. HP deficit is there for the Scorpions, so what it was a good start is now starting to kind of fall apart. Russians on the wrong side of the map to have any impact in this fight. The bat chats of the Sentinels will be off the reload shortly, so even if it doesn't look good now for Scorpions, it is going to get worse in about 10 seconds time when Rainbow rocks up with a full clip loaded. They need to kill Cindy, and they need to do it now.
Absolutely. So, well, they do, in fact, get the better of Cindy. So now it's all looking much more workable. Only 2 mediums and 8 Minotauro against 2 heavies and a medium as well. Russian already about to load in the clip. This is, oh, never mind. They got deleted rather quickly and very promptly. Perfect focus fire. Raspberry being now one shot. Aussie about to get possibly deleted. Yeah, this is all done and dusted. Scorpions, for a brief moment, they had the window opportunity to push this to tiebreaker, but not anymore.
Oh, when Sentinels get rolling, Jordan, I mean, the game just doesn't look close. As soon as they start winning and they take a couple of those, engagements, like the bat chats in particular, just drive-buying and deleting a couple of those tanks, it just doesn't even look like a close game.
I think the difference between Sentinels and most teams is that they're a lot faster at recognizing when someone's made a mistake or when they're out of position and how quickly they can punish on it. It comes down to, in a game like World of Tanks, it looks like quite a slow game if you're used to other esports titles, and I guess to an extent it kind of is. But because it's such a slow game, it means that you are punished very hard for the mistakes that you make, because you just can't get out of position. Like, it takes you a good 10, 15, sometimes 30 seconds to drive out of where you are, and in that time, you're just going to get absolutely blasted. So you kind of have to be a step ahead. Massive damage out from Rainbow, by the way. 5.2k, 158 fantasy points is a very, very solid amount.
You guys got Rainbow on your roster? Anyone got Rainbow?
I
Any
do
Rainbow
not.
enjoyers?
No, I used to.
No Rainbow enjoys.
Yeah.
That's a bit sad. There you go. Well, look,
Badge.
that's a big win for the Sens, and unfortunately, Scorpions can't pull it any closer there, Cthulhu. So I think it's going to be pretty straightforward who's going to be coming through towards the top of the table now.
Very much so, yeah. With Sentinels being able to pull yet another 3-1, today is just a day for it, it seems. But yeah, no, absolutely. Sentinels now being able, I believe they are able to just draw out with the Scorpions, given that now both of the teams are on 6 points. But this certainly sets them up really nicely for that top 2, top 1 contention in the early stages of the season.
Yeah, winning the head-to-head is always a nice feeling, especially if you got a little bit of a rivalry going for yourself. So that should put them in good stead, Jordan. And I mean, as if they needed any more additional confidence, because at least looking at their play, this looks like one of the better teams. You're saying maybe the best team in the league.
On their day, definitely. And I think today was definitely their day. I think you put any team against Sentinels today and they would have been able to clean them up pretty comfortably. Scorpions, I think, had a bit of a rough one. I'm looking at the stats there and not sure if Russian really only did do 0 damage, but if he did, that's a very, very shoddy game.
That's a large
from him. Either way, yeah, pretty rough game across the board for Scorpions. It just sort of felt like they got caught out a lot by the Sentinels. There was obviously, the one time they were able to get the better of them, but just sort of felt like Scorpions put themselves in worse positions on a more consistent basis than the Sentinels did. And so, end of the day, Sentinels was able to convert on that and capitalize on that. And now we're going to have a bit of a tussle for the top spot in the league after the first round robin is done.
We've seen a couple of games in Muravanka as well tonight, Cthulhu. How you feeling about the changes and everything getting mixed up here?
Honestly, I'm liking so far the changes. It does certainly introduce a good sort of dynamic, good general sort of pacing, and the ability to either go and take it at a very much slower pace or just full on turbo send it. Does certainly give a really nice leeway for that sort of gameplay variety.
Would you agree with that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think what it does do is that it gives the attackers a few more options on this map, where there used to sort of be like, I felt like really only one optimal way of playing the map, and that was just like rush the one flag, hope that you're going to force the defenders into a unfavorable trade and just hope to trade out effectively. And even that was like kind of a low percentage chance. Now there's a few more like little deflates to play around on that one flag. It seems like teams are starting to explore the other side of the map as well in the Magic Forest a bit more. They're coming up with a little bit more. So it's actually a little bit more of an exciting map to watch than what we kind of used to get, I think. And it's no longer like, oh yeah, this is just a defense win 90% of the time. It kind of feels like, I want to even make the argument that maybe it's a little bit attacking side. I know we've just seen 2 defense wins, but it sort of feels like there's definitely more avenues for the attackers to get wins than absolutely what they used to be. So I have to see obviously how it sort of plays out over the next few weeks. But yeah, I do like the changes. I think they're good so far.
Yeah, and as we line up the interview, we may as well discuss some of the other changes as well there, Cthulhu. I mean, we didn't see as much Minotauro in that series as we saw in some of the previous series. Why do you think that was? Do you think that's like a stylistic difference, or they just want to go with what they used to, what works?
I think, yeah, for the majority, yeah, it's still leaning into a little bit more of a comfort ground while still, leaving some room for the experimentation. I mean, Return still managed to bring out the Minotaur. For Scorpions, it more so felt like they just, tried to lean into a little bit more mobility, having a little bit more of that sort of flexibility, at least in terms of just being able to approach this with just as much ability to either angle themselves or having a little bit just general sort of flexibility, even in just turning the turret. Because given that Minotauro has a very limited range of motion, you can really outplay it and just kind of play circles around it. So I think we are going to be seeing more and more teams start to lean a little bit more into the Minotauro once we start identifying those hold down positions, like I believe we just seen. I mean, Speed even mentioned it before. So I reckon, yeah, we just starting to see meta evolve even further.
Alrighty, well, you were speaking a little bit about him, Cthulhu, so we'll bring the man in. We'll bring in the Return for an interview. Got to be happy with that win. It looked pretty comfortable for you guys. You guys were playing well tonight. So how did you find the series?
Yeah, I mean, the series went kind of as expected. I mean, last week during our game versus Action X, we didn't think that Scrim would take a week break, so that went as expected. But this week we took 1 Scrim, maybe 2, I think maybe 1. So yeah, we thought the results would go this way, yeah.
All right, well, I guess I want to touch on last week a little bit, because to me that was a surprising result. I didn't cast that last week, so I only did just watch the VOD back, but yeah, like I said, very surprising result, and you've sort of indicated you obviously didn't scrim much last week, but is that really all it comes down to? Like, if you're off for a week of scrims, you guys just end up losing to Action X, or did Action X play well? Are they like a threat for this season?
I mean, to be fair, they did play alright, but a lot of it comes down to, honestly, we just weren't in the mood to play tank. That's how it is. If we feel like winning, we'll go ahead, we'll win. If not, we'll just take a break, just enjoy the game.
Classic Sentinels. The classic Sentinels mentality.
Yeah, exactly. So, with finals, we decided, okay, we'll put in some effort. If we think we can get finals without trying, that's what we go ahead and do. So, yeah.
All right. Now, with Muravanka and quite a few more maps getting a bit of a change up, do you reckon Muro will see an increase in the pick rate, or is it going to stay a little bit more of a kind of a niche map where you just keep it as kind of the ace up your sleeve sort of deal?
I feel like Mura will be picked a lot more. That's not just for Sens. I would expect that for all the teams. How Mura was before, it was a real 1-1 map, and there wasn't that many opportunities. How it is now, it's a lot more field-based. You can play Ish, you can be aggressive with, which brought us up guard as well. There's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more, things that teams could do. So I definitely think that it'll be picked a lot more as well.
Alrighty, well, cheers for the interview, Returned. I'll let you go celebrate your victory, and look forward to seeing some more of your games.
Thanks.
There you go. I think it was pretty, at least the 3 maps that they won there, Jordan, it was pretty clean and concise stuff. And outside of getting maybe caught off guard on a bit of a different pick, they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and I think exactly what Returned has said is kind of something that does ring true every now and then. That's why it's so difficult sometimes to predict the Sentinels maps and Sentinels games, because, on any given day, they might rock up and just dominate, literally not look like losing a round. and then the next week they come in and they look like they're pretty much going to lose every round, and you just don't know really which Sentinels you're going to get. One thing I can say is you pretty much always will expect to see Sentinels at least dropping a series or two during regular season. They're never going to like be the perfect split, something like that. So today they were good. We'll see what we get next
they're
week.
just min-maxing their effort, right? I mean, it's the same in a lot of esports. There's a couple of teams that look, they're pretty good at the game. They, you don't want to scrim hard out if you know that you can get it done with, min-maxing your effort. Just some certified life enjoyers. Nothing wrong with that. Cthulhu, maybe not as much of a life enjoyer because I heard that the fantasy's not going too well for you, mate.
Yeah, look, I did take a little bit of an L, drop down to the 5th place from 3rd, which was rather unfortunate.
Hey, at least you're not down with Delfish Guy. That guy,
Yeah,
I don't even know what he's doing with his picks there. That's looking a little bit rough for you, Jordan.
I did get a little bit trolled this week, I feel like. But end of the day, we've still maintained top 10. I think that's okay. We'll see how we go next week. It probably was a bit of a noob move for me to have some Scorpions players in my lineup when they're playing against the Sentinels, but we'll remember that for next time.
Hey, how are we feeling about how tonight boiled down? Any kind of unexpected results? What were kind of the highlights for you, Cthulhu?
Look, the highlight definitely has been, the performance of Action X. Definitely felt like a nice sort of concise performance from them. Finally, a good clarity from their roster, which was kind of put under a bit of a question mark from week 1 and week 2 after their win over Sentinels. Felt initially like maybe a slight fluke, but today was kind of a confirmation that no, it's sort of an upward trajectory from Action X, which does feel rather nice. On the side of Comets, look, yeah, unfortunate that they, couldn't really find themselves any sort of proper closure, but the general sort of approach is there. It's still looking rather promising, and kind of from here on out, it's more so just about polishing their general sort of approach to the play.
Yeah, 100%. I think, look, let's take a look at some of those series that you were discussing and have a look at the results that we had today. And, Jordan, you could give your thoughts as well. All 1-3s. So we didn't get any just tiebreaker cliffhangers. I didn't get to use my pun again, but I had to throw it in there before we made it there. What do you think, Jordan? Expected from tonight?
Look, I got 2 out of the 3 predictions tonight, and the one prediction that I did get wrong was... Again, I sort of say that with the caveat of like, yeah, I'm going to predict Scorpions, but 9 times out of 10, I'm actually kind of expecting Sentinels to win that series. So, by and large, I'm probably saying, yeah, pretty much the expected results for tonight. I mean, just look at how many people got their predictions almost perfect or perfect. The only one that really trolled it is Production, so...
Look,
yeah,
that's
part,
normal. Even in other domestic ANZ broadcasts, production picks are usually pretty troll. I don't know if that's going to be the same here over on the Tanks broadcast, but that seems to be the common thing. I mean, I didn't do too bad. I also went 2 for 3 because Cthulhu, you went perfect tonight, so you had a hell of a light. You're up there with the War Game. You're about to get employed by War Gaming, I think, because you're 100% perfect.
Yeah, look, finally I do get a 3 for 3 on the predictions, and it's sort of, well, it feels nice as well, given that I bottomed out, I believe, on the predictions last season. So finally, some redemption for myself. And I mean, top 5 on the fantasy picks. Look, I'll take it overall.
Alrighty, well, let's have a look at the overall team standings. We're only in towards week 3, so plenty more time, plenty more round-robin games to play. But look at that. 6 points across the board. It's a tie. And that is definitely going to make things pretty spicy here, Jordan.
Yeah, indeed. And it sort of ties back into that conversation we were having where it kind of feels like there are 4 teams that are cut above the rest. And then there's Comets and Matildas, unfortunately, who are probably going to be missing out on a playoff spot. But based on what we've seen so far, now 3 weeks in, obviously based on the standings as well, it kind of feels to me like a 4-horse race. I would actually be very surprised if it changed up too dramatically from here, with I'd probably still say Sentinels and Scorpions taking out the top 2 spots, Action X and Panthers taking out 3rd and 4th, and then Matildas and Comets sort of battling for 5th and 6th. I think maybe there's a world where either Comets or Matildas can kind of start to put a bit of pressure on like that 4th spot, but both of those 2 teams have a lot of work to do to get to that point. It's not impossible. We've seen enough I think now from comments to say that it's doable for them coming through from B-League, and I already know Matildas from last season are a decent team, so just need to get their stuff sorted out. But I really wouldn't be surprised if these were the 4 teams that went through the playoffs.
Well, Cthulhu, I'll let you memorize the standings. I'll let all the viewers soak in the standings for a second, and we'll take a look at the matches that are coming up next week and get a better idea of who's going to be able to potentially pull away from the pack. We get a 2-1 tiebreaker between Action X and Panthers. Sentinels with potentially an easier game over the Commons to get themselves up the top of the table. And the same thing maybe you could say for the Scorpions there.
Yeah, look, I definitely think that the first matchup is going to be the big nail-biter because on one hand, Panthers are coming off a rather solid performance and only with technically 2 people joining them. On the roster, whereas on the side of Action X, what feels like almost nearly a full rehash of the roster with some of the newer introductions to the Action X name. But it's on one hand team that has been previously already pretty well performing and a very steady performer versus the team that is now only starting their sort of uprise. So that could be the big storyline for us to look forward to. Yeah, look, for Comets, things are certainly looking a little bit spooky, let's call it that, because
you never know though, Jordan. Like
true.
maybe Sentinels will be life enjoyers next week.
Maybe.
Scrims and Comets try real hard.
I would be very surprised if Sentinels would lose to Comets, even if they were life enjoyers.
Okay.
There should be absolutely no world.
I'm sure that Power will have some stern words for you about that.
Look, it's well and good, but end of the day, they are the defending champions. They've won 3 or 4 of the seasons. 3 seasons. 3 of the 4 seasons that we've had. They should never, ever lose to the team that got promoted from B-League 4 weeks into a tournament. Like, maybe in week 9 or 10, after they've had a bit of time under their belt. I'll give you that. But not in week 4. So if Sentinels lose, then I don't know what to say. Don't come to LAN.
Yeah, oof. maybe we'll see who's going to make LAN and who's not going to make LAN. We got plenty more games before we get to that point. We had 3 3-1s tonight, so fairly straightforward, cut and dry matches. But there's plenty more matches coming up in the next couple of days of play. Either way, that's going to be it from us tonight. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time.